Alright, so I don't know how long I'm gonna stay up. I'm trying to stay up too long, but I got awoke. But I kind of want to keep the talk of For Obsession and Backrooms respectively going. I didn't quite. Uh, I didn't quite get all the little URLs, but let me refresh this page. Let me refresh this page real quick.
Expect the unexpected. How many times?
Yeah, that did scare the shit out of me, actually. I gotta copy something else. While we're doing that, let's just go ahead and.
Expect the unexpected. How many times do I have to teach you that lesson? I wasn't some superstar whiz in chemistry mastering the periodic table, but I got very familiar with the element of surprise. You could probably tell I'm in a bit of a silly, goofy mood, but I am going to be yapping about something that I couldn't help but dive into the cesspool on, and that is the Backrooms hate bandwagon versus the Obsession Glaze carriage. This shit is like Team Edward versus Team Jacob for horror movies right now. I was going to say horror movie fans, but I think a lot of the people weighing in on this have maybe never seen a movie in their life until this week or last week. It is so
He uses the word glaze a lot.
degenerate and just absolutely atrocious that I can't help but weigh in on it. So, most of you know, Obsession is my favorite movie of the year so far. I made a whole video just gushing grannies over it. I think it is an absolute home run. I loved every fucking scene in that film. And last night, I saw The Backrooms, and I made a video on that, and I liked it. I thought it was a good movie, and at times, even a really good film. It had quite a few problems, mostly like in the second half of the film, but overall, I enjoyed the film, and I think it's a very solid film. However, film Twitter, and I can't even call them film Twitter because, like I said, I feel like most of them probably haven't seen a moving picture outside of TikTok before. But a lot of people that are weighing in on the Backrooms right now because maybe they saw advertisement for it and just wanted to be part of the crew, part of the ship because it was slated to be like one of the biggest movies so far this year. They
Wanted to be part of the bandwagon, he means.
and saw it and then were disappointed and they were saying it's the worst movie I've ever seen, it's completely unwatchable trash, that kind of thing. And I'm not exaggerating, tweets like this are more common than the cold right now. I blurred out the account here, but this is an account with 300 something thousand followers and it's always blue check marks, so I guess there's always the chance that it's for engagement farming. But this individual writes, went in with an open mind because I love Backrooms content, but beyond a shadow of a doubt, this is probably the worst movie I've ever seen in theaters, and most definitely the worst film I've seen opening day. What a disappointment, lol. They then never explained what they didn't like about it, just, it was bad, can't watch it, worst thing I've ever seen in theaters. And there's nothing wrong with not liking it. I think that's totally fine, and I understand some people that are actually giving, like, a real perspective on it. But the bulk of it is just nowadays stuff like this. Oh, it's the worst thing ever made, actually. Which is just a sign of the times we live in where something is either the best thing ever made or the worst thing ever made. There is no longer any in between. You either have to worship it and suck the fucking piss out of its balls, or you have to at all times be pooping and farting on it. It is just the worst thing ever made. There is no nuance left. I just find it so fascinating, if they're being truthful, that this actually is the worst movie they've seen. That means they've seen maybe like 4 movies in their entire fucking life. That's the only way that's possible, because objectively, this is far from even the worst movie of the last month. Like, this is, no matter how you spin it, even if you didn't like it, which again is totally fine, there are things to not like about it, there have been significantly worse movies that have come out in just the last 2 weeks. Now, of course, maybe they didn't see them, but that's why I find it so interesting, because even the big films that have come out this year, I think a good handful are worse than the Backrooms no matter how you spin it. Like, this is probably someone that maybe just goes and sees every Marvel movie ever and just blue screens in their brain for the jingling keys. I guess that's possible. Like, I have no idea, but they preface it by saying they love Backrooms content. I just think that's a liar, liar, pants on fire moment right there, because the movie is just, I think, a more fleshed out version of the Backrooms content. And keep in mind, I'm someone that doesn't like the Backrooms. I'm a D1 hater on Backrooms. I'd find extra hours in the day just to make jokes about the Backrooms. Even though I always appreciated the work that Kane Parsons put into it, I just never got into it. And I played so many of the...
I wish I could pop off the screen. Let me duplicate the tab. Maybe that'll solve the issue. Go ahead and close that tab. Worked.
Expect the unexpected. How many times do I have to teach you that lesson? I wasn't some superstar whiz in chemistry mastering the periodic table, but I got very familiar with the element of surprise. You could probably tell I'm in a bit of a silly, goofy mood, but I am going to be yapping about something that I couldn't help but dive into the cesspool on. Hemorrhoids. And it's totally fine to like go in there and have fun. Like if you just want to turn your brain off and just point at the screen, I get that reference, and just glup shit away. So I was pretty satisfied with it. So I was really confused about this perspective. I like the Backrooms. I'm a D1 hater on Backrooms. I'd find extra hours in the day just to make jokes about the Backrooms. Even though I always appreciated the work that Kane Parsons put into it, I just never got into it. And I played so many of the games as a fucking meme because the games are such dog shit. And yet I ended up liking this film because I thought it did what the other content failed to do for me, which is get me invested in it, make me care, and actually show me some interesting things that I thought were pretty different from the normal horror slop that I watch. And I watch like every horror movie ever made. So I was pretty satisfied with it. So I was really confused about this perspective because it isn't like a small number of people. In fact, its Rotten Tomatoes score is right now in the 70%, which isn't bad, but let's keep in mind fucking Five Nights at Freddy's and Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the super sequel Stinkerooski, both have Rotten Tomatoes audience scores in the 80s. And this is why I think Rotten Tomatoes audience scores are actually significantly worse than critic scores in a lot of instances, because half the audience just seems to be legitimately fucking lobotomized. These two films are like cinematic hemorrhoids.
There's a lot of Backrooms content. For example, look at this. I found... This is the web series, The Backrooms, directed by Kane Parsons. I need to check it out. It's got an 8.3 out of 10 on IMDb alone. The rating's that high. I'm going to check that out. Then I'm going to look at The Backrooms movie. This came out last year. It's an hour and 3 minutes. Directed by Kenny Bean. There's a few more that are directed, all with the same content. So... and I believe that's the mini-series. Go ahead and refresh my page. Yeah, there's other content by this, and that's been attempted. There's a Backrooms 2. There's so much. I've finished watching that Spider Noir. So, but let's check all these out. See what The Glaze is about. Actually, let me make sure I added that to my watch list. I kind of want to check all these films out if I can sometime, just to kind of get invested a little bit in the lore that is The Backrooms. But my internet is kind of slow right now. Bear with me. Yeah, that's the series directed by Kane Parsons. I just have that open, so I can close that right now. But this is another one directed by... Don't even see it. It's just a series. The project is categorized as in development, so it's not even worth talking about. Okay, that's nice. That's good to know. Anyway, I just go ahead and add that to my collection. I'm looking behind my back. So this one is halfway done. 2024. After discovering the myth and legend of the Backrooms, a group of friends enter into off-darkest corners. Blah blah blah. Directed by Kyle Godfrey. Check that out. This is another hour and 3 minute film. What's with the hour and 3 minutes here? Then you got The Backrooms, because it's characterized as in development. Okay. No way in, no way out. Okay. Yeah, so apparently it's because the Backrooms is not just one thing made by Kane Parsons. It's an entire subject matter. So it's just like, yeah, it's apparently bigger than Halloween Michael Myers, if you will. Then we got the Backrooms movie No Escape. That's apparently in post production. So think it's hell. Nah, it's just the next level. You can tell this is going straight to Netflix kind of thing. Whatever. Yeah, TVMA going to Netflix, it sounds like. That's Kane Parsons himself. Kane Parsons the second, actually. I think the lad's like 21 years old. Well, this month he'll be 21, I believe. 2005, and 2005. He's about 21. He's about 21 years old, right? Let me get my calculator here. Let me just do this real quick. Wow, I didn't expect it to be that big. Six. Yeah, he's gonna be 21. So he's 20 right now. He's gonna be 21. Okay. Anyway.
And it's totally fine to like go in there and have fun. Like if you just want to turn your brain off and just point at the screen, I get that reference, and just glup shitto out. Oh, Bite of 86, oh, that kind of stuff. There's no shame in that. But they're not good movies by any means. They are the...
This is a website, One Wish Willow. This is all marketing for the movie Obsession. I showed that before.
It's the best way to make a wish. A one wish willow wish.
When you hear the magical jingle, just make a wish and snap the willow. The One Wish Willow.
It's the best way to make a wish. A one wish willow wish.
What are you wishing for? Make your wish come true with the One Wish Willow. Please wish responsibly. Wishes may cause unexpected behavior, violent tendencies, and self-mutilation. Do not use if you're experiencing insecurity or extreme obsession.
An extreme obsession, get that? Did you get it? Make sure I get that website down, by the way.
Most, like, by the numbers, cash grab slop shit to capitalize off of a rabid fandom. It still does just flabbergast me that those two films are as positively received as they are, but it really shouldn't shock me when things like AI Fruit Love Island were some of the most popular videos on TikTok for months of people, like, really heavily engaging with that garbage. So, like, I guess, of course, it shouldn't be a surprise that things like Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2 also really hit with that crowd, but still, come on. And yet they have a much higher score with the audience than The Backrooms does, a movie that actually tries, and I do think succeeds in doing something different. So why is that? Especially when we look at something like Obsession, which right now is a huge, home run with critics and the audience alike. It has been going ballistic in the box office, and the word of mouth is the strongest I've ever seen for a movie in the modern age, where week over week it keeps growing, which is unprecedented. It's now over $100 million in the box office off a sub-$1 million budget. It's become a phenomenon, and now people are addicted to comparing Obsession to The Backrooms, and trying to constantly put down The Backrooms because it's not Obsession. It's become like actual fucking sports teams now to these audience members that are fucking out there on the front lines in the trenches fighting here for no reason, because I don't think in any world is Obsession comparable.
I mean, he hit it. He hit it right when he said it's a lot like the whole Team Jacob and Team Edward thing that Twilight had about a decade and a half. I think a decade ago, some people would argue, both sides would argue that Edward is better than Jacob, and Bella Swan should pick Jacob over Edward and all this other shit. No, she should pick Edward because he's a vampire and he's more powerful, and well, Jacob's a werewolf and blah. All this stupid shit that I just like the movie because I like the book, that kind of thing. I was never into that side. I was completely neutral, had nothing to do with it. I just noticed it. I was not going to join either bandwagon. So I just like the movies. I should add that to my watch list. The first Five Nights at Freddy's, I'm just looking at the scores here. I'm about to wait a little bit. Yeah, it's got a pretty good score. Let's see. Backrooms. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does have. Critics didn't like Five Nights at Freddy's, but the damn audience did. Yeah, it's got a better score. Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the sequel, was even worse with the critic. It doesn't even have a top critics list. So you see 32% and 21% respectively, but just 17% on the sequel. But audience is 83% even on both verified and all audiences. Loved it, 83% compared to 87%, so it's a little bit less, but you see what I'm saying, compared to that of Backrooms. So now if we look at Obsession, don't know why it's still loading. Let's just duplicate the tab. I'm so sick of this. Duplicating the tab. I'm getting like Jimmy on South Park. You know how he does. Duplicating the tab is a lot better than just refreshing it. So anyway, 96%, 92%. You know what? Let's compare this with Sinners that came out last year. It came out in April, right? I'm always comparing any film that gets close to 90%. I'm going to compare it with Sinners. 2025. Get a Pepsi while that loads. Anyway, Sinners. One wish will. Oh look, 97 even on both sides, and 96 on verified audience, and all audience is 90%. So verified 96%. All audience 90%. 4.8 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5. So what? 96, 90, 93, 94. 4.6 on both sides. Obsession is the new obsession. Of course. That's my boss would say. It's the new obsession. It's the new obsession. Trying to be like Donald Trump.
To the Backrooms. They are entirely different kinds of horror films, but people can't help it, and it got me really like hooked, as it like I got addicted like it was fucking heroin to reading these absolute mind-numbing takes, and it became painfully clear why Obsession worked even with the modern audience zombie, and it became very obvious what the Chemical X was for Obsession. Like Obsession, I think is just an.
Now, oddly enough, the movie Backrooms, it actually hit a lot of Zoomers, Gen Z generation, people born in like early to mid 2000s, people in their 20s, the early to mid 20s. Yeah, I think they were born early mid 2000s. I think they were born then.
Extraordinary movie, but there was one thing about it that really worked well with the audience, and that is, it's simple. You don't have to actually think or really directly engage with what the film is showing you. It's very simple, and in my review, I pointed that out too. The storyline for Obsession, the plot, is actually something that we've seen tons of times. Even in something like The Fairly Odd Parents with Timmy and Trixie, where he makes the wish about them being the last two people on Earth, so Trixie will fall in love with him. It is a storyline you've already seen before, so you don't actually get challenged to actually think of anything, deeper, and the messaging that the film wants to deliver isn't subtle, so anyone can pick up on it and feel like this sense of pride and accomplishment, like it's a fucking EA game here, I guess, that they were able to see the message. And that is not a knock on Obsession at all, because it's by design, and I think it's very smart, and it's something I pointed out in my review. It is simple, and it uses this very simple formula to really wow. The execution is unlike most horror films out there. It is a fucking masterpiece in the way that it builds its tension, the way that it unnerves the audience, the way that it's not afraid to sit on something cringe and uncomfortable and just really make you squirm. But you see, Darman fam, I don't think anyone would consider Obsession a slow film. It's not afraid to be slow in certain scenes to really get some juice for the squeeze there and like the creepiness and the eeriness, but the film itself is always moving, and something is always happening to be startling or scary or just like that kind of feeling. The Backrooms is slow by design. It is a slow film, true. And it's very clear people don't want to engage super deeply with what they're seeing on the screen. The biggest complaint is that the Backrooms is boring. That they don't like that characters are just exploring without like gore and without like a ton of jump scares and without like a ton of monsters or anything like that. So they're calling it like a snooze fest for that it's too slow.
Obsession is straight to the point. It's a little bit slow, but it's intentional. It makes you wait for the bigger, scarier stuff. Well, Backrooms kind of... I mean, it's intentional too, and it does work, at least for me, but Obsession is to the point.
Low, and saying things that make it pretty clear they weren't paying attention, where they're pointing out, like, they don't even say what happened to Clark, was one of the complaints I saw, even though it literally shows you what happened to Clark, by the way, so you had already zoned out, you completely checked out, you're probably on your...
And there was one YouTube short that I watched, sorry, I had it on Caillou, that said that Clark did not need to go out that way, and he didn't. They could have kept Clark. I kind of don't like how it didn't go into the Mary's past. That's the character, the psychiatrist, Clark psychiatrist, played by Winnie Navarrete. I can't pronounce her name. Nate. Reservoir, whatever her name is.
Your phone. So people just don't want to engage too thoroughly with what they're watching. So a movie like The Backrooms being slower is going to be divisive to a modern audience. So even something like Five Nights at Freddy's isn't that divisive because people just want to go in there and get the stimulation. And Five Nights at Freddy's is always doing something. There's always something happening on screen. And all of it, the whole kit and caboodle, is bad. But it doesn't matter because it's there. The only good thing about the Five Nights at Freddy's movies are the animatronics, the actual work they did bringing those to life on the screen. It, practically, I think is very impressive. But the films themselves are fucking really not good. But the thing is, it is faster paced. So people are having more fun with that than something like The Backrooms, where things aren't always happening. There are a lot of scenes where characters are just traversing this weird, odd landscape, and there are some deeper messages in there that aren't spoon-fed to you, especially towards the end of the film. Even though the film does also spoon-feed a lot to you as well, but people didn't even bother to engage with that much, which I found very odd too. But yeah, the core of it, with all these complaints and a lot of the takes I've seen, it all ties into it's too slow for the modern audience. And there are very real complaints. Again, I want to make it clear, I totally understand why people also would find other things to not like about it. It's not a perfect film by any means, and it's something I highlighted too. But the hate bandwagon seems to be just this avalanche now. It was a snowball that's turned into an avalanche where now it's cool to hate on it. That's like the trendy thing. That's like the socially acceptable take to have on it. And its big crime was that it was slow. Thus, slow equals boring. which I think is a real shame. And I think there's a real criticism there because, as I said in my review, there are quite a few scenes that do drag. You don't need to see him go through every single fee-fi-fo-fum down a hallway. You could definitely speed those kind of shots up. But even outside of that, a lot of the film is spent in like this found footage where they're going through here and maybe you're catching glimpses of monsters and stuff, but you're not like immediately getting like jump scared or seeing something super scary. You are going on a slow burn journey. And I actually went through and checked some other slow horror films like Hereditary, which is actually one of my favorite films ever made. It has an audience score even lower than The Backrooms at 72%. I think that movie's a masterpiece, but the thing about Hereditary, it's a slow burn. And
Once again. Oh shit, I'm sorry. Once again, I'm gonna check it out. My bad. Check out check out this so-called slow bone. I'm trying to get this right here over to my other screen, and this screen kind of lags. Alright, so this is Hereditary. I saw like maybe 45 to 50% of this movie, but I didn't watch all of it. I'm aware, I know the ending, I know about the ending. Oh yeah. So we got a good 72%, 3.7 out of 5. That's with the popcorn meter, that is the audience. Comparing that to Backrooms, once again, 74, 73. It's a tad bit lower. Of course, with Obsession, yeah, it's a good 20% less. Okay. Good, but not so great. When it comes to critics, however, man, matches that of the critics, at least for Obsession. And close enough for Backrooms. No, it's almost a tie, I guess, minus the 20% difference with Obsession. Anyway, that's for the slow bone that is Hereditary.
I remember back when this first came out, a lot of people had the same complaints about that as they do right now with the Backrooms. It is very much not a secret, and it's not rocket science, and it's not hard to see that the thing people dislike the most about movies is if they're slow. Even if it's slow on purpose, even if it's slow for the sake of building this tension throughout the course of the film and trying to hopefully get you hooked on it to engage with it, people just don't want to. They would rather it just get to the point, which is a big thing I saw in a lot of the conversation around this movie. They think that it was aimless and that it was such a slog because scenes would go on where they're just walking through weird rooms. Who cares? Yawn, show me a monster. And I think that's kind of a shame. And I'm not coming in here sirens blazing as the fun police. If you didn't like the movie, you didn't like the movie. And again, that's totally fine. I just really do think it's sad that we've reached this point where a lot of people just can't sit still. And I know this has been like a big, yapping point for a while now with like TikTok brain and the attention spans and all of that. But I think it's pretty evident that people don't even really want to change that. They really do just want everything instant gratification. They want all of it immediately. They would rather go into a horror film and it's just jump scares right away, or it's just really moving super fast right away. They don't want to slowly get there. And I think that they really miss out on what kind of rewarding experience can come from a product that doesn't just instantly give you the beans. Some of my favorite movies, shows, and games are slower. And I think there's a lot of special art in there. And if we reach a point where a lot of the big movies that come out are really afraid to be slow.
Honestly, If you pay real close attention, and I say this for the fans that more or less are kind of wavering with the new release of Resident Evil, the games Resident Evil, both the original 1996 release and the 2001 remake, the first game is kind of slow. From the moment that you enter the mansion, you know, of course you watch the intro cutscene, then you encounter your first zombie. You know, cutscene into the mansion, encountering your first zombie. It's kind of a slow boner. Nothing really happens much with the first, damn near the first hour of Resident Evil. Same thing with Resident Evil 2. It's kind of a slow bone. Both the original, because you go from the police car crashing into, as Leon and Claire, you run around the zombies, you meet the gun guy, Kendo, trying to remember his first name, the gun owner, the gun shop owner, Kendo. You meet him. Then after he's eaten by zombies, you run through the city more. Finally go inside you discover the RPD station. That whole segment, with the little action it has, it's a slow boner. And it's kind of a slow boner throughout, with, you know, jump skills spread out very, very, very sparingly, very intentionally, and very, how do you say, done right. The third Resident Evil 3, Nemesis, that's the action one. The first attempt that Capcom did at making a Resident Evil action-based. And of course, Resident Evil 4 action, Leon Kennedy kicking the shit out of Granada. You know, the little button prompts that you got was the first time any video game developer ever tried button prompts. And then Star Wars The Force Unleashed did it. That came out. I remember owning that game. I actually asked my dad to buy. I got him to buy me a PlayStation 2 as well as a copy of Star Wars: The Force Unleashed, the first one. And I remember those button prompts because I compared them to the button prompts in Resident Evil 4. But 3 and 4 are the action-based games, while the first few, 0 even, Resident Evil 0, 0, 1, 2, and 0, 1 and 2, they're all a slow bone. You know, minus the occasional, the first zombie experience that each character has. So when it comes to horror movies, the best ones are slow bone. Halloween 1973 was a slow bone. Nightmare on Elm Street, didn't see the whole of it, but I bet it was a slow bone. Same thing with Jason, Friday the 13th, slow bone. Damn near every one of them, slow bone. Pumpkinhead, slow bone. Fucking Leprechaun, slow bone. Child's Play, 30 fucking minutes of a slow bone. Not everything is gonna be skilled jump scares. Look at The Conjuring. That might be an exception. I'm looking behind me now, I'm paranoid. Insidious, more or less, and slow bone. But anyway, let's go. Let him continue. I gotta make sure I'm doing these.
We're basically just gonna keep getting things like fucking Five Nights at Freddy's, where it's TikTok content on.
My bad. I didn't mean to refresh that channel. God damn it. Yeah, we're not gonna watch that again.
Where it's TikTok content on the silver screen. And I think that's kind of bleak. I'd rather see more horror films like The Backrooms than Passenger or The Conjuring or Five Nights at Freddy's. I'd rather 100 more movies like Backrooms than even 10 more of those. Just fucking
Passenger was actually pretty good. Let me rewind to make sure I got it right.
from a product that doesn't just instantly give you the beans. Some of my favorite movies, shows, and games are slower. And I think there's a lot of
That's where I brought up Resident Evil.
special art.
And honestly, the new upcoming Resident Evil by Zach Krager, it should not be just jump scares, and it should be a slow bone. It should be. Meaning that it should take its time to build suspense and engage the audience.
In there. And if we reach a point where a lot of the big movies that come out are really afraid to be slow, we're basically just going to keep getting things like fucking Five Nights at Freddy's where it's TikTok content on the silver screen. And I think that's kind of bleak. I'd rather see more horror films like The Backrooms than Passenger or The Conjuring or Five Nights at Freddy's. I'd rather 100 more movies like Backrooms than even 10 more of those. Just fucking generic slop. Anyway, this was just something that I really couldn't help but just blabber about as I was reading all of these takes about how The Backrooms is the worst movie ever because it's slow. It's slow. They ruined it. Which I find very odd because Backrooms is slow. Even like the content on YouTube isn't exactly the most nuts to butts action-packed monsters out the wazoo either. And the games super duper aren't that. They are really, really, really agonizingly boring. And in most of those games, nothing happens until the last 2 minutes where you get a jump scare. So the games are even slower, and somehow people like those games but didn't like this movie. The movie moved faster than the games. But anyway, I'll stop yapping about it. Point is, the reason I believe that The Backrooms is right now just getting dogpiled is because people just don't really want things that don't instantly give them what they're expecting, which in horror movies is scares. The Backrooms builds up to it, work towards it, and I think it does a good job. I enjoyed it. It has its problems, sure, but I thought it tried to do something different than most big-budget horror movies that we see, and I appreciated that, and I had a good time with it. Yes, Obsession, I think, is an absolute masterpiece. It is still my favorite movie of the year, but it is not comparable to The Backrooms. These are totally separate films, and I think comparing them does absolutely nothing except lead to hostility over apples to oranges. Pretty fucking stupid. Anyway, that's really about it. See ya.
Yeah. The content is just, I'm not gonna go into a bunch of spoilers. I want this one to be the next one.
Just when you think the
I want that to be the next one. God. But we're gonna go into Jonathan Fuji.
I wish Babylon 2 would... Hey everyone, so if you've been paying attention the past few years, you might have noticed a new wave in the horror space, which is essentially YouTubers are taking over the genre. Now that alone can be considered scary, you know, YouTubers making mainstream movies. I certainly remember a time where it felt like anytime a YouTuber tried to do anything mainstream or Hollywood, it would just collapse in such a bad way. But lately there's been a new trend of new voices in movies, specifically in the horror genre, which mainly stem from YouTube or at least online content. I mean, just look in the past few years alone. Chris Stuckman of Shelby Oaks, the biggest crowdfunded movie ever, bought by Neon, Mike Flanagan, executive producer. Danny and Michael Filippo, aka Raka Raka, with Talk to Me. Premiered at Sundance, bought by A24, followed that up with Bring Her Back, also distributed by A24, and they're off and running. Mark Fishback, aka Markiplier with Iron Lung, self-financed and distributed into one of the bigger hits of the year. We have Kane Parsons, who's coming out with Backrooms later this month, and the movie we're talking about today, Obsession, from Curry Barker. Personally, I think it's really cool to see this. I know there's been some debate online in terms of YouTubers making Hollywood movies. Now, maybe I'm a little biased because while I'm not in that space, I mean, I do this, you know, I do consider myself a YouTuber, at least somewhat. So weirdly, it does feel like I have somewhat of a rooting interest.
I do too.
For them. I'll support virtually any YouTuber trying to chase their dreams as long as Mr. Beast stays away from my precious movies. And Curry Barker, who alongside his creative partner Cooper Tomlinson, which started out making comedy sketches online, is a pretty fascinating trend into where we might be going with the horror genre. It was announced not too long ago that he will take on the new installment in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, a franchise which has failed to recapture audiences for decades now. And personally, I think what these studios are doing is really smart. In a time where I feel like movies are on the verge of dying every single day, I think it is obvious that studios are trying to pinpoint young talent, whether that's through actors or directors. With greats like Scorsese and Spielberg towards the end of their career, and people in their quote-unquote prime, like
Before they make them, you know, before they make them bone out and expect them to produce a lot of shit, and then they become the laughing stock. Before they get the same "you're too old for this" kind of thing that the internet is doing with a lot of people like Steven Spielberg and Quentin Tarantino, you know, and eventually they get old and the reviews and critics really start to hit them hard.
Nolan or Coogler or Gerwig, just as an example, studios are always looking towards the future. And I'm like Nolan, Scorsese, and Spielberg towards the end of their career, and people, actors or directors. With greats like Scorsese and Spielberg towards the are on the verge of dying every single day, I think it is obvious that studios have a new installment in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, a franchise which has failed to recapture audiences for decades now. And personally, I think what these studios are doing is really smart. In a time where I feel like movies are on the verge of dying every single day, I think it is obvious that studios are trying to pinpoint young talent, whether that's through actors or directors. With greats like Scorsese and Spielberg towards the end of their career, and people in their quote-unquote prime, like Nolan or Coogler or Gerwig, just as an example, studios are always looking towards the future. And while that might sound ridiculous, talented people will always show up in any industry, no matter what. It's better for studios to recognize talent early, establish a relationship, kind of nurture them, hopefully, in a creative way, and then hopefully it ends up being a successful partnership for the studio, for the filmmaker, and for us, the audiences. It's why A24 giving a 20-year-old Kane Parsons the keys to Backrooms is a big deal. Why the Filippo brothers continuing to get opportunities after Talk to Me is important, and why Curry Barker being trusted with Texas Chainsaw Massacre means something. Will it work out? Who knows? Will these movies be good? Who knows? But taking a chance on younger filmmakers with not the typical standard background, I'm all for it. But it's all irrelevant. But taking a chance on younger filmmakers with not the typical standard background, I'm all for it. But it's all irrelevant. But taking a chance on younger filmmakers with not the typical standard background, I'm all for it. But it's all irrelevant. But taking a chance on younger filmmakers with not the typical standard background, I'm all for it. But it's all irrelevant. But taking a chance on younger filmmakers with not the typical younger filmmakers with not the typical younger filmmakers with not the typical younger filmmakers with not the you still have to prove you can do the job. Well, I had a chance to see Obsession about a month ago, and I've been thinking about it ever since. The premise is pretty simple. Guy likes a girl, guy makes wish that the girl likes him, shit goes down. In a way, the premise isn't too dissimilar from Masterpiece Wish Upon starring Joey King. I highly recommend seeing that if you haven't.
Hold on, you dig on multiverses?
But here's one of the things about Obsession, which is the movie manages to feel really fresh. As I just said, a movie about a wish gone wrong has been done before. I mean, the Fairly Odd Parents have even done their own version of it. The movie manages to have a sense of comedy about itself. It plays almost as if it has this level of looseness or carefreeness that is nice, but then it can instantly turn it on when it needs to and go from a fun, entertaining movie into something way more dark and disturbing. It does remind me, and I promise I'm not just saying this because we talked about it, but it did give me that same feeling as Talk to Me. Maybe because because it centers around young adults and it has this youthful energy about itself. But Talk to Me does turn into a pretty mean-spirited, dark movie, which Obsession also does. Now, we've seen horror movies struggle with tone before. I don't really think that's the case here. We've seen horror movies struggle with the amount of scares or the kind of scares it does. This movie doesn't really have that either. Not to call out a movie, but I saw a movie earlier this year that had so many jump scares in the first half that it was borderline boring. It wore off so fast and I was pretty disappointed, and then the second half turned into a more atmospheric eeriness about it, and I liked it a lot more. All that's to say is Obsession has a pretty good balance of when to go for it and when to dial it back. Most of the scares here rely on more of just an eeriness about it, a figure in the back in the shadows, a character moving its body in a way that made me want to punch the screen, odd facial movements, moments of stillness, while still managing to get me with a jump scare. This is not a flex, but I don't react much in horror movies anymore. I think I've seen too much of them, and I'm just kind of dead inside. And there's a scene here where it's so obvious a jump scare is coming, and it still got me. That's when you know. And yes, there's a good amount of gore. And it's tricky because with a premise like this, you do feel a little bit confined to that. A movie about someone whose wish turns bad and chaotic, like, okay, but how do you land the plane? How do you make it satisfying for audiences? How do you make it so that the number of horror movies that it seems like audiences just routinely get disappointed by the ending at least, how do you make sure that doesn't happen here? And I guess the answer here is just commit to the fucking bit. It's like the movie actively tried to break the box that it put itself in. It's a pretty satisfying ending that's pretty clever as well, but so much of this movie's success relies on, at least to me, newcomer Indy Navarrete. Again, someone I did not know. I guess she was on that Superman show. Can't say I watched that. Somehow she is Instagram mutuals with one of my friends, so I definitely have to ask him about that. I think it's because she's #Arizona's own, but she is fantastic.
Same thing for me. I didn't really watch the Superman and Lois remake. And I say remake because obviously it is. There's a Superman and Lois from like the 1990s. Look it up. It stars the guy from the old show, Ripley's Believe It or Not. Never watched the show. I watched the old show. I watched the original, but never the remake. I was going to.
No, I guess she was on that Superman show.
But I don't binge watch shows anymore. I don't really watch TV anymore. I stopped watching CW TV, the CW network. I stopped watching those shows a long time ago. I stopped watching I still haven't watched the last season of The Flash and Arrow and even Supergirl. I have it, and DC's Legends of Tomorrow. I didn't finish those series. I didn't watch their last seasons. With Legends of Tomorrow, I think I'd have 2 or 3 seasons that I'm behind on. Maybe I'll pick it up. Maybe I won't. I don't know.
Can't say I watched that. Somehow she is Instagram mutuals with one of my friends, so I definitely have to ask him about that. I think it's because she's #Arizona's own, but she is fantastic here. A true breakthrough performance in every sense of the word. I mean, this will probably catapult her up in her career in at least some significant way after this. It's a hard role, dual personalities within a character. You can see a character that's beneath the other character, and it's hard to balance the cheesy romantic obsessiveness and also the sinisterness. The facial expressions, the body movements, the physicality of this is just not okay. It honestly creeped me out. She creeped me out, respectfully. I think the main actor, Michael Johnson, is good too. He just fits the role perfectly. If I could just summarize this is a good horror movie that I think pretty much everyone will at least be satisfied with. Listen, you're talking to someone who really likes Longlegs, but I totally understand that some people who think Longlegs is incredible and the people who think Longlegs is one of the worst movies they've seen. I really get that balance. With Obsession,
I think it's incredible. Longlegs, I mean. One of my favorite movies of 2025? Has it really been 2 years since it came out? Yep, 2024. It's been 2 years. Let me check on its release date. Almost 2 years. July 12th, 2024. I can't believe it's been almost 2 years.
that range is going to be much higher and more contained, because just from talking to people and seeing their reactions, I know some people who think this is genuinely an incredible horror movie, is one of the best of the decade so far. And then on the other side of the spectrum, people are still like, yeah, it was pretty good. it was solid. That's a good range you want to have, especially for a debut like this. It's not a perfect movie to me. Out of all the horror movies I've seen in the 2020s, I don't know how high it would be, but I think this is a pretty fascinating debut, a very good movie, incredibly satisfying. As far as the movies I've seen this year that are new, this is definitely one of the best movies of the year. It may not reach some of the heights that I personally like in other movies, but this is a damn good time. Obsession, 4 stars. You know, I asked people on Instagram what I should wish for with this, and the amount of responses I got that mentioned Babylon, you all just get me. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
He's good. So good, in fact. Let's see his review of Backrooms. I'm gonna refresh the channel because he's at the top. I moved him to the top.
We are genuinely in the middle of witnessing a new wave in Hollywood, and I refuse to be one of the last people to recognize that. Since one of my last videos where I talked about Obsession and this new wave of horror from YouTubers, it has gone on to just go bananas. Obsession has gone on to be a genuine phenomenon in Hollywood, doing things that most movies don't ever do, only to be followed up by Backrooms, which will almost instantaneously become one of A24's highest grossing movie ever, if not the highest. I mean, at a certain point, you have to feel bad about The Mandalorian and Grogu just getting two-pieced by small horror movies. Now, I might be just ever so slightly older than the generation that the Backrooms really took a hold of, but I certainly remember the 4chan post and caption where it all started. I definitely talked about it with my friends. I've seen the first Backrooms video on YouTube, and I've seen bits and pieces of
By the way, he's a Gen Z or a Zoomer.
others, and I always thought it would make for a good horror movie. And once I found out that this was actually becoming a reality, that cynical part of my brain did think, well, the studio that gets it is going to hand it to another studio driven director, just a very commercial, plain, generic horror movie that will, I guess, make a lot of money, but nothing too crazy. And then they handed it
like Resident Evil, like how it's been for the past decade and a half. At my Tower of Madness. I think it's been 2 decades. Whatever. Almost 2 decades.
to Kane Parsons, a 20-year-old, which I know has been talked about ad nauseum here. And while I was rooting for him for obvious reasons, I did wonder about how all this pressure,
because he's Gen Z like you,
all this workload falling on a 20-year-old will do with this movie. Well, I had a chance to see it last night, and Backrooms is pretty fascinating. Now, let me be very clear with something here. I've seen some people say, well, it sounds like people are kind of grading this movie off a curve just based off the age of Kane Parsons, the director. And listen, I really don't have a problem saying I kind of am, and I don't think that's a bad thing either. Like, yeah, it does matter to me that he's 20 years old doing this. What was I doing at 20 years old? I don't even know. I was probably crying into my hands after my professor talks about derivatives one more time, you know? But
what was I doing at 20 years of age? Well, I was in college, my second year, or I think sophomore year in college. I think I had declared a major at that point. I think I did. I went from computer science to undecided to eventually criminal justice. I think I was 20 years old because at 21 or 22, at 21 about, I went to just interdisciplinary studies, kind of like still a version of undecided, if you will. And Mississippi State's equal to that is no, it's general studies. Interdisciplinary studies was Mississippi State's equivalent of that, but at Ole Miss, the University of Mississippi, it was general studies. But yeah, I was still in college.
even if I remove that part of my brain, this movie has so many pros that I am wondering to myself, like, if we look forward, 20 years and Kane Parsons continues to direct movies, did we land someone here? Is this a guy for sure? Because some of the things he's doing here in Backrooms is genuinely impressive to me, no matter the age. I think virtually every scene in the actual Backrooms itself is so fascinating and so well done. First, the production design is the star of the movie. And it should be, because when you have the word rooms in your movie title, the production design has to be a banger. And obviously, this sets and rooms and rooms and rooms are incredible. The way Kane Parsons utilizes the space of Backrooms is impressive. The constant humming noise in the background from the lights, you get the feeling exactly how you want. Because while yes, this is a horror movie and I'm not going to try to classify it as anything but that, it's not a traditional horror movie in the sense of The Conjuring or even something like Obsession. Very rarely does this movie have the typical scares that you see, even if it's well done. This movie relies almost exclusively on atmospheric horror, psychological horror, anxiety and dread-inducing feeling and sound, a real type of claustrophobic surrealism that you just don't find too often. Or if you do, let's face it, it's usually terrible. But one of the best parts about the Backrooms here is it feels like you're hallucinating, and there are definitely fantastical elements in it, while managing to also be grounded in realism. I don't know how they managed to pull that off, but they did. And I like the restraint and patience that Kane Parsons shows in the Backrooms. It never felt like there was a rush to get something out or to have big chases or big moments or big scares. It really lets the audience sink into the setting of the Backrooms. And one of the things I was most curious about how they were going to do is the found footage aspect of it all. A part of me did wonder, would Kane Parsons be too hasty in trying to do found footage? Would it be poorly done? Would it be too much as someone who gets motion sickness almost too easily? But how they do it, one, makes sense narratively. Two, I didn't get any motion sickness, which thank you so much. But three, arguably the best scenes in the movie. There is a found footage sequence in here that I'm not going to spoil, but it is so creepy, so incredibly effective without showing almost anything. Just a very bold filmmaking choice that they managed to pull off. I know the point of the Backrooms is to want to get the fuck out, but for whatever reason, I kind of wanted to live in that a little bit more just because of how well it was done. Which brings me to our characters and the story outside of the Backrooms, which will definitely rub up against people the most. Listen, I think it's smart to have the main protagonist be someone that they clearly establish early on is alone, has a bit of a temper, and pushes people away. And to juxtapose him with a therapist who in theory should have the answers, should be able to help in any way she can, but also having trauma of her own. All good ideas. However, that's about as much as we get into their characters, and I don't want to make it seem like they didn't care about fleshing them out, but it really felt like we're just trying to get these characters in the Backrooms, because the most quote-unquote traditional narrative feature film story arcs that we find with these characters are probably the weakest. They're not very fleshed out, pretty paper thin, and usually that would bother me more. But again, with how this movie plays out, it's honestly not even a big deal, because while technically speaking they are the protagonists of this movie, they're not. The Backrooms is the star of this movie. The Backrooms is the main character of this movie. They exist to support the Backrooms. Now, the third act definitely gets messy. There's no denying that. And in a movie that has been so patient up to its point,
The third act is always messy. Usually, I mean. Maybe not always. Not always. Not always. I correct myself. Not always. But usually, it's not equal to the first and second acts. It's often the worst and less thoroughly done right. It's just not as good. That's what I mean. Usually.
it did feel like maybe a producer's note or a test screening reaction of like, okay, we have to get the ball really rolling now. And I get that, I accept it, and it did make for still some great scenes. I do understand that that's not exactly the strongest point of what this movie was doing beforehand. And I will be very interested to see how people react to the ending of this movie, because almost to its credit, this movie isn't exactly interested in giving you answers. This movie isn't interested in giving you a whole backstory about how the Backrooms came to exist or the lore. It touches...
Because that ending is very... It's almost like a cliffhanger. Left intentionally. It's just unclear. Kind of funny, but clear.
Upon it, it seemed like it's going to do it, and then it won't. And it ends on a rather ambiguous note. And we have seen with horror movies that have the most interesting premise almost fail to satisfy audiences fully. Because when you have an interesting premise, the audience starts making up scenarios on what they think is going to happen in their mind, and the movie will never ever live up to what's in their head. I try to stay away from doing that. I think I do a pretty good job of not trying to get my own expectations.
Very much like Resident Evil and Silent Hill, because Silent Hill came out this past year. Actually, was it this? Give me a second. Was it this year that Silent Hill came out? What's on to Silent Hill? Oh yeah, it was this year. It didn't last but 1 week. I think it was 2 weeks. Oh my god. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yep, released earlier this year, January 23rd. I personally thought that Return to Silent Hill was better than Welcome to Raccoon City. Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City 2021. I thought it was better. A little bit. I thought it was better. Is had a relatively short theatrical run. It debuted in the United States and lasted roughly 3 to 4 weeks in wide release before being pulled. Because of its smaller scale release and softer box office numbers, many locations dropped it by late February. AMC theaters, at least the ones in San Francisco, dropped it after, I think, the longest they held it was 2 weeks. It lasted for 2 to 3 weeks in standard theaters. G-jointed narrative, unengaging acting, and fundamental portrayal of the psychological stuff of its source material. He's not lying, but he's right. It was the worst of the year. It's so cheap. God damn. I thought it was okay, but give it at least a 3 episode. This Rotten Tomato score was poor as fuck. What do they know? Damn, son. This shit is right. Yeah, it's right. I gotta look this up later in my spare time. Damn! It might surpass Sinners. Anyway, let's get back to it.
in my head projected onto the movie and accept it as is, but it is something to note for sure. Listen, I acknowledge the flaws here. There certainly are, and it would not surprise me if some people walk away from this movie pretty disappointed. I found this movie pretty fascinating. I like that it doesn't feel the need to give you all the answers. The production design is fantastic. I frankly could have watched even more. Hear me out here. The Backrooms, they look kind of cozy. All right, I like that warm yellow. Okay, it looks just like a nice, calm place to be, some peace and quiet, you know what I'm saying? But that's just me. Backrooms, 3.5 stars. Pretty interesting stuff here, I'm not gonna lie. Pretty interesting stuff. You let me know in the comments what you think. I'd be interested to know. Please subscribe. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Just when you think the box office is waning and cinema is dying, then along comes horror to save the day. As per usual, what a time to be alive. Let's review Backrooms. Backrooms stars Chiwetel Ejiofor, Renate Reinsve, and is directed by Kane Parsons.
What is this?
What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new 2026 review. I'm gonna go ahead and say it right now. I think 2026 horror-wise is starting to equal 2024, and we're not even like, halfway into the year yet, but I feel like we just keep getting banger after banger after banger for horror movies, and some really exciting things coming along too, with YouTubers staking their claim into the horror genre, with Chris Stugman, Markiplier, Curry Barker, and now Kane Parsons, who is 20 years old, or was 20 years old, I think, when he made this movie, Backrooms. And it's just such an exciting time to be alive. It's like a groundswell, a paradigm shift, whatever you want to call it. But it is really, really freaking exciting. And I posted this on X a few days ago. It seems like when the box office starts to lose trust with people, then along comes horror with usually these smaller budget movies, and they really just give the industry the kick in the ass that it needs. All of a sudden, this year is like the YouTube filmmaker movement. And
He's out of line, but he's right.
Again, it is really, really exciting, and these are fantastic films that think outside of the box, and I'm not going to lie, they're making Hollywood look pretty silly right now. You got a brand new Star Wars movie, which that's another whole subject on why this is happening. But you got Obsession literally beating out Star Wars after the weekend on like a Monday or a Tuesday, right? And Obsession's been out for 3 weeks at this point. It's insanity what's going on right now. And again, I'm just on cloud nine about it all. I love a good underdog story, and that's what this is really. It's a good underdog story. These are YouTubers with proven fan bases that are actually making great and thought-provoking movies, and then the fans are there to support them. And this is what happens when you build an audience. It's almost like coming in through the back door or the back rooms. You see how I brought it all around?
Clearly we do, sir.
By the way, I am
Well done. Well done indeed.
filming 4 videos right now, 2 for extra and 2 for the main channel, which this one will go on the main channel. I'm hoping I can get through this whole session, but I just got so much content that I need to record and get out. So be sure you're subscribed to both channels, so that way you can get all that new content that's coming out. Going to be doing Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead 1990, because we just had a brand new movie that I'm not hearing good things about at all. And I figured it's time for me to go ahead and watch this one. Got a new drum box coming and a brand new Incredible Hulk episode. Lulu is chirping.
Okay, man, get to the review now. Come on, get to it.
But before we go any further, let's give you a quick
Get to it, Mark Soldier.
plot synopsis for...
He was in the army. He was in the army, so I say it.
Backrooms, and I'll talk
I
about
say more.
what
I
I
say
know
more.
about the lore of Backrooms after the plot synopsis. But basically, you got this guy who's a furniture store
I mean, I don't think we really care, but
manager, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. Really, this movie sort of more focuses on his life, his personal situation that's going on. He's in a marriage that's on the rocks. He's already moved out. He's living actually in the furniture store. So he's got this therapist by the name of Mary that he goes to. And really, I think these are the two main characters of the movie. And I think the movie gives both of them like almost equal footing in the story. But he's in the furniture store, and then he goes downstairs because all the lights are flickering, and he goes to the breaker box, which I deal with breaker boxes all the time. I'm a maintenance man in an apartment complex. So a lot of this stuff in this...
he mentioned his job, his job. So glad Gary did that. Thank you. I think his name's Gary. Isn't it? Let me double check real quick. Oh, Lee McCoy and Gary West. Oh, his name is Lee. Yeah, Lee McCoy. Background. He's an avid drummer, a runner, and a retired Air Force Master Sergeant. My bad. Air Force, not the Army. Channels, I get him confused all the time anyway. So he probably like Top, he most likely loved Top Gun. Channels, you can watch this content channel, blah, blah, blah. Yep. Okay. Check out his Insta. Check it out.
Smith was like, oh yeah, I know exactly about, going to breaker boxes and trying to figure out what's causing what. But this doesn't feel natural, doesn't feel normal.
Okay.
And he's got these two little red breakers that are at the bottom of all the regular breakers, and they're kind of like at an angle, so it's kind of weird. I was focusing in on that. But quickly he realizes that he has another dimension on the other side of the wall in the basement of the furniture store. He literally just walks through the wall, and then he enters the back room. For some reason, I want to say Red Rooms. Red Rooms is another movie that I think has this type of vibe to it. Completely different story. But as far as like the way it delivers the scares and the horror, I think both movies are very similar. And actually, I think they would both make a good double feature. And they both have rooms in them. Red Rooms and the Back Rooms. They're both...
Any more of a double feature than Obsession and Backrooms, Gary? I mean, Lee?
both phenomenal
triple
movies
feature.
too. But once he gets into the back rooms, I like the yellow aesthetic. And the first thing that I really took away from this movie was the set design. I just love great set design in movies, especially when you're dealing with more of the supernatural and getting creative and creating rooms that they're familiar, but there's something off, and really that's kind of a big plot point of this movie, what the back rooms actually are. I'm not going to go into too much in the way of spoilers, but this movie is definitely a mind trip. And I love movies that the viewer can kind of take away from it what they will, because there's a huge psychological aspect to it. And I think we all have different things going on in our brains, with all the life struggles and whatnot. And he's even like seeing a psychiatrist. And so, I love movies that deal with this type of stuff. And so I was just so consumed into the world before we even got into the horror aspect. I was just really interested in Clark's life and what was going on with him. I think a lot of people can relate to what Clark's going on or going through, because I can't talk. But really, and as you can imagine, the Backrooms, it's sort of like this maze that you can get lost in and you can never find your way out of, which definitely has some parallels to, you know, human psychology, and you can get lost in your own mind and your own troubles and maybe feel like you can never find your way out of, the pit that you are in. And so this is more of like a metaphorical approach to that. I love movies like this. I call it psychotic horror. I even have a playlist called Psychotic Horror if you want to check it out. And it's got tons of movie reviews that I've done on what I would call psychological horror. And there's a broad spectrum there. As far as the lore of Backrooms, I had never even heard of this. I don't frequent the channels that cover this type stuff. My wife actually got really interested in this whole lore and did some research on it. And she sent me this video. She said, "You should check this out. This is really interesting stuff." What the Backrooms is, what kind of provoked it. You know, some guy posted this image, I don't know if it was on Reddit or something like that, of just pretty much a furniture store, and I believe it was like that, you know, the yellow wall setting, and it just looked like an image that you could take more from it than what it actually just is. And Kane Parsons actually made these videos inspired by that image, and this whole thing just became this lore that everyone was sort of diving into and forming their own hypotheses about what was going on, and just really interesting stuff. It was just a matter of time before a movie came from this, which is so cool. You know, how just a seed, a spark, can ignite, and then all of a sudden an idea is created, and then boom, here we are with a movie that is going to make north of $60 million this weekend, and I'm going to even guess maybe even 70 to 80, given that the opening night was close to 40 million. And I will say, when I went to my local theater to see this movie, I've never seen so many young teenagers, in groups together going and watching this movie. This was sort of like a cultural event. Most of the time when I go to the movies, yeah, you see some young people, but you see a lot of older, guys like my age and in their 30s. That seems to be the normal movie-going audience, and of course some in their 20s. But I'd never seen so many teenagers going to a movie before, which is really, really cool. And to be able to get top-notch acting talent like Chiwetel Ejiofor and Rante Ransvi. I really loved both of these actors in this role. Yeah, there are a couple more actors in the movie for sure. But again, I think they are the two leads, and I think they're the two anchors of the movie that you just get so invested in. And they're both very different characters. Mary kind of gets caught up in this world because she doesn't really believe Clark, because Clark tells her, hey, there's this whole other world in my furniture store. And, naturally she would think Clark is a little bit off his rocker. But then she goes investigating, and of course she gets, sucked into not really sucked in, she just walks into the back rooms. There's so much I'm not telling you about what Clark experienced and eventually what Mary experiences. But this is a slow burn movie, I think. And I think it really, really picks up. Not that I wasn't invested up to this point, because I really was. It's a great slow burn. But I think the horror of the movie really, really picks up once Mary gets into the back rooms, and then everything kind of lets loose. And some really, really creepy stuff happens. I'm always interested in how young filmmakers approach the scare, approach horror. And I think this is a movie where you're going to get freaked out by more of what you don't see than what you do see. Yeah, there are some visual scares in this movie, but I think most of the time, maybe even 90%, it's kind of like theater of the mind. I think it's a very different movie than Obsession, which I think is much more visually striking. And, it's what actually happens on screen that scares you. And I think that's a very effective movie. And this movie takes a different approach. It's more psychological. It's definitely more ambiguous. And I think if 10 people go into this movie, you might get 10 different theories. about what they just witnessed when they walk out of it. And I love movies like this. I think it's really cool. And I don't really think there's necessarily a wrong answer.
I'm not gonna watch.
I think one more thing in terms of the scares is how this movie switches from, I guess a normal medium to more of a found footage approach, because there is this character that has a video camera that goes in there. And I think that kind of ramps up the tension, when you pull back on the quality, because it's, like a high 8 found footage or whatever it is. Which, by the way, there's a lot of CRT TVs in this movie, so it feels like it's from like the 90s or something like that. But yeah, aesthetic-wise, I loved the bouncing between the found footage and the more traditional filmmaking. And you know what? I'm glad I spent a day. Last night I was going to jump up here and record my review and try to beat the rush and get it out. But I decided I'm exhausted, because I'm on call this week at work too, so I've been working a lot this week. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to, everybody, you can check out like 10 other reviews in our little horror circle from some of my peers and enjoy those reviews. And I'll just, set this one out and just let the movie percolate a little bit, go to sleep, and then wake up. And maybe I'll come out with, maybe a different opinion on the movie. And I'm glad I let it settle. I liked the movie, but now that
he means let it marinate in your mind for a bit. Let it set. Like, don't release a review right away. That's what out of theater reactions are for, or just reactions in general. Give yourself time. Give your brain and mind time to process it before you release a review. Before you hit record and talking to your microphone in front of your camera.
let it settle quite a bit. I really love the movie. I think Backrooms is a fantastic film, and I think as far as like horror and maybe just movies overall, 2026, I think this is easily going to be in my top 10 of the year. And I think once all is said and done for 2026, I think Backrooms is really going to stand out, at least for just being a very unique experiment. And I'm so happy for the success of this movie and what it's going to garner. And I would imagine we'll probably see like sequels down the road because let's face it, big studios, they're going to want to take advantage of a movie like this, okay? And this is a world that you could really explore. So, yeah, we already have a sequel announced for Obsession. We don't know when that's going to happen, but I could see one for Backrooms as well. So, I'm going to give this a high purchase worthy. It's close to a Trapped, but I'm gonna give it a high purchase worthy right now. I'll definitely watch it again when it comes to physical media. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think of Backrooms in the comments. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day on Fridays. We do FIFA on Fridays. Follow me at Drum Domes and on my socials. Put me on Patreon. Become a channel member. Buy me coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a good day, and Drum Dome out.
Okay, dokie then.
What the heck did I just witness? I watched the Backrooms last night, and not only was this a different take on the existing lore that I'm aware of, it had a
I got other ones I want to watch. Sorry. I'm going to get to Zafty in a bit, though. Nope, that's not what I meant. God damn it. That's not what I... That's...
Don't ask what...
That's not what I meant. God
what the heck?
I'm looking for the wizard. Where is he? Fake Wizards.
The Backrooms, released on May 29th, is a horror thriller movie created and directed by YouTuber Kane Parsons. The movie is based on the internet myth of the same name, an abstract pocket space where nothing quite makes sense. This movie has a great premise, but is a bit awkward in its execution. I'm Tom the Wizard Man, and this is the Fake Wizards review of The Backrooms. If this review gives you any value at all, please like and subscribe, as we're making many reviews every single week. To give a quick background, The Backrooms originated from a post on 4chan with this picture and the comment of, "If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you." The post blew up in popularity with people across the internet using the concept for their own interpretations in different videos, games, and stories. Among these was Kane Parsons, who made found footage style videos of the Backrooms on the Kane Pixel YouTube channel. His videos expanded the mythos and garnered a lot of attention and interest, which led down the path of this movie being created with the help of A24, which is amazing when you find out that this guy started when he was a teenager. As for the theatrical rendition of The Backrooms, this movie is set in the 1990s and follows the story of Clark and Mary. Clark, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, is a failed architect and owner of a pirate-themed furniture store. We follow him during a time where everything seems to be falling apart. His marriage ended with his wife taking the house, the furniture store isn't doing well, and he's stuck being unable to pursue his career in architecture. Trying to work it out, he attends therapy sessions with Dr. Mary Klein, played by Renata Rensby, but Clark struggles in making progress. Because he lost the house to his wife, Clark has been staying in the furniture store overnight, where the electricity keeps acting weird. After messing with the fuse box one night, all of the lights go out, and he sees a thin line in one of the walls, where light is peering out of it. Investigating the phenomenon, Clark finds that the wall leads to an entirely new space, the aforementioned Backrooms. Curious about the layout design and what exactly he found, the movie delves into Clark's exploration of the space. Right off the bat, this movie is visually captivating. They absolutely nailed the aesthetic and design of the backroom set in this. From my understanding, most of this was shot on a physical set. They made a 30,000 square foot replica of the space, which is super cool to find out. There are segments in this movie where a character is quickly going through the backrooms, and the vastly different and twisted environments are intriguing and unsettling. And it's not limited to just the backrooms. The movie as a whole is interesting to look at. There are shots when people are outside, and the way the sky looks just feels wrong, playing into the overarching aesthetic of things just not looking right. The performances in this movie to look at. There are shots when people are outside, and the way the sky looks just feels wrong, playing.
It reminds me of the thing in Las Vegas when you're at the Venetian, the ceiling, because they got a replica of Venice with the whole boat thing and the sky. I thought it was the actual sky but when I looked up, it was fake because I could tell it was part of the ceiling.
Into the overarching aesthetic of things just not looking right. The performances in this movie, I think, are solid, but suffer from some weird dialogue. There's a couple lines and scenes that stick out where it's not bad, but you're thinking, what? Chiwetel Ejiofor does a great job with making himself feel believable as Clark, where Renata feels a little bit more stiff by comparison. Regardless, I would say they did do a good job. The movie has this theme about mental health, and at first I was confused as to why they went this angle with it, but looking back on it, it does work. Because you need to be a crazy person to actually want to explore this space. Most sane individuals that phase through a wall would either go, okay, I'm selling this place, or I'm burning it to the ground. Getting into the story aspects for this film, I feel like I need to give a little bit of context. I'm not a huge lore guy when it comes to the Backrooms. I remember watching some of Kane Parsons' videos back in like 2022, and I enjoyed them. The videos of the expedition teams trying to chart out this unknown space feels like this alternate path that Stranger Things could have gone with the Upside Down. And the found footage videos of people ending up in the Backrooms are sincerely good horror short films. They properly elicit the sense of dread one would experience being caught inside of this. That being said, I haven't necessarily stayed up to date with the lore, so I don't know what's going on actively. When you have a concept like the Backrooms, or even the Upside Down for comparison's sake, the mystery of these locations is what makes it intriguing. You don't know what could be lurking around the corner, as the rules for what can happen here are unknown, adding stakes and tension. If you are suddenly stuck in the Backrooms, you would have this panic line of questions. Where am I? How did I get here? Can I survive here? Is there anyone else here? How do I get out? The Backrooms should feel like a nightmare, and this movie had sequences that made it feel like that, but I don't believe it captured that same sense of dread that was in his YouTube found footage videos. I personally feel that this movie turned down the terror and dread feel in this movie and turned up the cool factor. I wasn't really scared. Most of the time I was going, oh, that's a cool idea. Oh, that's neat. Oh, that's really cool. I wasn't scared. To really illustrate this point, I have to get into spoilers, so this is your spoiler warning. The doorway that Clark travels between never closes. One of the key concepts for the Backrooms is that there's no perceivable escape. The idea is that you end up here, but you were never supposed to. Showing up here is an inexplicable accident. Trying to find an exit becomes a fleeting hope the more someone explores, because nothing makes sense, and whatever is chasing them can't be explained either. If you have it so there is a concrete in and out, you lose some of that tension because you know that there is a definitive way to get out. The fear shifts from how can this character get out to can they make it back to the exit. During the climax of the film, when Mary is attempting to escape, it taps into that how can this character get out because she has no clue where she is, and as she's actively being chased, there is that sense of dread. I just wish it was more prevalent in this movie. Also, there's the issue of what chases them. The monsters in this are essentially just copies of people. They have a semblance of looking like a person, but under closer inspection, their details are wrong. They have extra eyes, their faces are segmented, proportions are twisted. The problem is that I didn't find it scary. It's a cool concept, they are unnerving, but in execution, the backroom copies of people, I kind of found funny. They reminded me of Floop's Fooglies from the Spy Kids movie. There's this scene at the climax where Clark has gone full cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and he wants to stay in this world. Which concept, they are unnerving, but in execution, the backroom copies of people, I kind of found funny. They reminded me of Floop's Fooglies from the Spy Kids movie. There's this scene at the climax where Clark has gone full cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and he wants to stay in this world, which I don't necessarily have an issue with. I thought it was a weird choice to make, but I didn't think it was bad. But he's at a table with Mary, who's tied up, and there's a copy of a person sitting at the table as well. And the copy has two sets of eyes, and his nose is doubled. And Clark goes on about how they don't feel anything, they don't think. And then he says, and you can eat them too. And he lifts the copy's shirt up and just takes a chunk out of his belly. I'm serious when I say this. It's a packed room. I had to stop myself from laughing because I didn't think it was scary. I thought it was funny. It drifted away from scary into surreal because I wasn't scared of these weird pseudo people. The other issue I have with this is that we know there are scary things in the Backrooms. For reference, the earliest monster I remember them using in these videos was this weird squiggly guy. I don't know what the hell it is, and personally, I think this works better. If you show up in a space like the Backrooms and chasing you is an inexplicable thing, that's terrifying. Weird fake render of a person is unsettling, yes, but again, doesn't elicit that sense of terror that I was expecting. I'll ask you, the viewer, which is more terrifying to be chased by? Weird, inexplicable monster, or weird version of a person? I don't think this is a bad movie, it's a weird movie. Elements of it work really well, where other parts of it just kind of don't. I think with this being Kane Parsons' first theatrical release, I'm more excited about his future, as everything that was a little off can be learned from. I'm excited to see what he does next because he has a great sense of visual storytelling. I'd still say I had a good time with it, and personally, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. If you had any interest in seeing it, I would tell you to go see it. If this review provided you any value at all, please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.
Imagine that you passed through a solid wall and found yourself in
Hello, I'm the real-life fake wizard. Obsession released in theaters on May 15th, 2026, written and directed by Curry Barker. Produced for $1 million by a filmmaker who was uploading comedy shorts to YouTube 2 years ago, this movie has no business being as good as it is. And yet, here we find what will likely be the best horror film of 2026. I just don't see anything being good enough to top this. I'm the real-life fake wizard, and this...
They said the same thing about Sinners last year. The same thing. Has no business being that good, but yet it is. And the best of 2025. Sinners, yeah.
Is a fake wizard's review of Obsession. If this video brings you any value, hit the subscribe button, as we're posting lots of reviews every single week. Bear Bailey works at a music store alongside his childhood friend Nikki. He's been in love with her for years, rehearsing confessions in the mirror and folding like a lawn chair every single time the moment actually arrives to confess his feelings. One day, browsing a new age shop for a gift, he finds a cheap novelty trinket called the One Wish Willow. The cashier mentions, almost as an afterthought, that some customers have come back to complain.
You know what? I love the Star Wars table scenery, because that's actually the same table where that famous chess game was played by Chewie and Han Solo, Chewbacca and Han Solo, because those very creatures in that chess game, the hologram chess game, end up being in Star Wars and The Mandalorian and Grogu. Like the Mandalorian and whatever his name was, that was the son of Jabba the Hutt, they end up fighting those very creatures, those very aliens. So I just think that's a nice little inclusion.
Plain, and not because it didn't work. Bear buys it anyway, and after succumbing to his cowardice to tell Nikki he has feelings for her, decides to use the wish himself, that Nikki should love him more than anyone else on Earth. Well, the wish comes true, and she does fall in love with him. And that love escalates and escalates and escalates until a lot of bad things happen. The monkey's paw idea is one that is very well known by now. You know, be careful what you wish for. And yet, this movie takes it to a completely new level with something far more personal and far more devastating than just the wish goes wrong framework than it has any right to do. Part 1. These are people you went to high school with. Obsession works as well as it does because the first act makes you care about 4 people before it starts destroying them. Bear's insecurity, the rehearsed confessions, the cowardice when Nikki asks him point blank if he likes her, is painfully recognizable. Nearly every man watching this film has been some version of Bear, too scared to say the thing and too blind to see that the situation was already decided. He's very likely friend-zoned and completely incapable of reading the room. And you wince and cringe because if you're a guy, you remember being that guy a long, long time ago. Hopefully that's not you today. If it is,
in a land far, far away. Actually, it's closer to home, but you know.
Work on that. The supporting cast is relatable too. Ian is the kind of a jerk, kind of a buddy trying to coach you through emotional paralysis. Sarah is the one who actually picks up on something being wrong before anyone else does. And Nikki, pre-wish, is someone Bear has flattened into a fantasy without realizing she's a full human being with her own aspirations and complications that have nothing to do with him. These are people you know. You went to school with them, or they're your coworkers. You grew up with them. They're your D&D group, perhaps. You see all of these traits in yourself and in the people that you know. They are extremely relatable. Off the bat, Obsession does something that most major big-budget horror films are incapable of doing, making you invested in the characters. Part 2.
Because it puts you as the characters. You're in their... You see it from the point of view. You're in those shoes. You've been in those shoes. Especially if you're a Gen Y person or older. Gen X or Y. Or older than that even.
2. The darkness is the point. Early in the film, I had a complaint written in my notes that this movie is too damn dark. Like visually dark. Scenes where you're squinting at the screen trying to figure out what you're looking at. For the first 30 minutes, that irritation felt justified. And then, gradually, as the movie continues, you realize that Barker is doing all of this on purpose. And it's, I think, masterful. The darkness in Obsession functions as a storytelling instrument. It keeps you uncertain about what you're actually seeing. Compare that to the Game of Thrones approach, where entire battle episodes are hidden by darkness just to mask some shoddy CGI. There are times that Nikki is just standing in the dark and all we see is a silhouette of her. Combine that with her unpredictability, and we truly don't know what's going to happen next. It's a great way to keep you guessing. There are some shots where you can just barely see her, and inside of that, there's this little glimmer that makes it look like she might be possessed or something. The visuals in this were extremely well shot, but truly, it would all mean nothing without Indy Navarrette's performance. Part 3, Indy Navarrete is the movie. You can take away the One Wish Willow, which is a very interesting device. You can take away the impressive visuals. None of that would be worth anything if it wasn't for the lead actress carrying this movie. Indy Navarrete, who you might recognize from Superman and Lois, is fantastic. Her performance is what I would describe as histrionic. And in this case, that is a great thing. Her enormous emotional swings are delivered with near surgical precision, shifting from tender to predatory within the same scene and often within the same shot. She's doing the kind of work that gets lazily labeled as unhinged acting by people who have never considered how difficult it is to be that unhinged and that controlled at the same time. There are specific scenes that I would love to discuss, but I can't because I don't want to spoil anything. And this is almost entirely based on Navarrette's performance. I think this is an award-winning performance, and I hope that she has a very, very fruitful career ahead of her. Part 4. The jump scares are a coward's crutch. Now, all of this praise aside, there is still one big thing that reduces this movie down from a 10, which is awesome, to a 9. And that is the cowardly jump scares. Barker built a horror movie that generates dread through character and uncertainty. This movie makes your skin crawl because of the very unique story being played out and the acting. The line delivery and the cinematography are enough to make you horrified at what you're seeing. There are 3 or 4 big revelations where your jaw drops and your skin crawls. And for horror, that's enough. Unfortunately, they also peppered in jump scares that blow your eardrums out, which are completely unnecessary. Worse, the jump scares actively undermine what makes this film special. Throughout the second act, you're trying to gauge what's really going on, and you're trying to hyper-focus on scenes to catch all the twists and all the clues. You're trying to really read into things. That ambiguity elevates all the horror, and it demands silence and stillness to do its work. Every time the film detonates an attack on the nervous system, it robs you of the mystery experience because it breaks your concentration. Just let the audience sit in the dread. Let them wonder on their own. Part 5, a word of warning for some of you. Now, before we wrap this up, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the serious nature of an abusive relationship depicted in this film. If you've experienced any kind of abusive relationship in your life, this movie is very likely to dig up those memories and have you recounting some pretty nasty things. In a lot of ways, that's the point. And it's done in a cathartic yet cruel kind of way. This is a rough movie. You should probably know that going in. Not that this is a trigger warning or anything, just that me personally, I had anxiety for 2 days after seeing this. Barker made a debut feature for $1 million that runs circles around studio horror with 50 times its budget, and the jump scares, along with a handful of minor pacing wobbles, are the only thing standing between this film and a perfect score. Everything else is operating at an elite level. This is a 9 out of 10. If you're a horror fan, you gotta see it. And if you enjoyed this review, hit the subscribe button, maybe leave a comment. Did you see the film? Let us know what you think. I'm the Real Life Fake Wizard, and until next time, create, innovate, and inspire others to do so as well.
some of the best horror movies are surprisingly simple conceptually. What if a hotel was scary? What if a dog was scary? What if a car was scary? I'm just naming Stephen King things. Anyways, I just saw a movie called Obsession that takes a really simple premise and executes it flawlessly. Corey Barker, another in the legacy of new YouTube turned horror filmmakers. I think this movie shares quite a bit in common with Bring Her Back, but it also exists as a really interesting investigation, unique insight into gender dynamics and relationship dynamics and the discourse surrounding that in the 2020s. I think years from now, people are going to be looking back at this as like that's a very good example of the type of discussions and reactions happening along these lines. I mean, in some way, it is kind of like, without even that much of a horror concept, you could really just dive into like interesting, messy dynamics of what's happening here, of, codependency and relationships with someone who's mentally unwell, there's lots of interesting stuff going on here, but the basic premise could be in like a animated kids cartoon. It's this guy has a crush on this girl, this coworker. He finds a stupid little like knickknack at a store, at like a mystic shop, where you make a wish and it'll come true, right? He tries, but he just can't really get up the nerve to like share that he likes her like that. You can tell like the vibe's not good, like she's not really like into him in that way. They build up the suspense behind this guy and you're like, oh my god, like you don't want his heart to get broken. You're totally in on his side, and then he makes this wish. He wishes that she will love him more than anyone else in the world. The story doesn't have any surprising twists and turns, really. It kind of goes down the path you would expect, but an extreme level, and the execution, again, is perfect. Michael Johnston plays Bear, and Indy Navarrete plays Nikki. Her performance is incredible. First off, you could tell the director is young and understands how like people in their 20s talk. As soon as she becomes obsessed with this guy, as soon as the curse begins, or wish, her performance, it's all over the place. It could be extremely silly. It could have been stupid even, but it's played so perfectly. A twisting dynamic of like, it's veering on too much, but always takes a step back. It just kind of like her character goes on. There's a little too much, and then takes a step back of, oh, I'm so sorry, does something extreme, possessive, and then, oh, I'm sorry, no, you're not. A lot of what's great about the performance is just letting it exist in the space, like the way the frames are composed, the lighting. There are some shots in this movie where you can barely read her features, and you're just trying to read her features, not in a way like it's just too dark to be legible. It's intentionally like this, and you can see like the sparkle of lights in her eyes. I don't know how they did that, but it was just fantastic. The way her body moves in certain scenes, like it looks like, or feels like it was like she moved one way and then they played it in reverse, so it has like a dreamy, strange, like it's just so unsettling. And I very rarely have this happen with horror films. I was like, I need this movie to be over. I was like sick to my stomach, and I was like, this is kind of like a little too much for me to deal with. There was a point where it literally was like, sometimes when you go through those haunted houses and you just know the big noise is going to happen or something is going to happen, that I was like doing this. I don't want to be jump scared. And the jump scares aren't obnoxious. They're pretty well done. This movie has kind of like the typical horror movie, boom, loud, in your face, bombastic, punching you in the face when something is really intense. But really the jump scares aren't that. They aren't cheap. So much of what is actually scary about this is just like, again, the performances and the acting and the way the dramatics of the scene unfold. In so many ways, I feel like, and I wonder if this movie feels like it's playing almost on the erotic thriller genre, especially a movie like Fatal Attraction, where it's like Glenn Close is the crazy lady obsessed with the guy, crazy lady who's obsessive, But this movie takes that simple concept of him making the choice to, and there are quite a few choices in the movie that makes it really interesting, that he makes the choice, yes, to make her obsessed with him, but it's not like a serious thing. He's not actually thinking it's going to work. He just kind of does it just like whatever, like just like putting the wish out into the world. And that'd be one thing if he was oblivious, or if he had just made that one mistake, right? We can forgive the character watching him just make that mistake, but it becomes clear, and there are moments in the movie where the real version of Nikki comes through and she'll say something or she'll snap out of it for like a split second, or you understand that she's in pure hell. Super messy when he continues to be in this relationship with her. Like, yeah, she is like duct taping his door closed and like doing crazy weird shit. He's also responsible for this, not doing what he should be doing. So, and of course things change, you know, the dynamic shifts and he makes certain choices later in the film that are pretty bad, but I was shaken, you know, at the end of the film. I was in so much of it comes down to like the lead performances, but all the other performances are really good in this movie. It's a dynamic that's not unfamiliar to people who have friends and know people who get into relationships that are bad dynamics, and you're just like, oh god, when are they get they're super codependent all of a sudden, all these things, you know, we're familiar with this type of stuff, you know, mental health problems, you know, there's lots of what she does that could be played off as like, oh, she's just going through a lot. And a lot of the movie, he's kind of justifying in his head, like, okay, there's no way, like, I made this wish come true and it's real. Like, she's just going through some things. Eventually, he can't ignore it. Anyways, I'm going to get into spoilers, but you guys should absolutely go see Obsession. It's totally worth it. Curry Barker, YouTuber known for That's a Bad Idea, sketch comedy. I mean, it's amazing what achieved here. Like, I'm in awe. It's a fantastic movie. I know he's lined up, I think, to do the next Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Like, I'm feeling great about that. This guy knows his shit. So it's fucking scary. It's really messed up, and in a way that is new and fresh. Indy Navarrette's performance, really, there's no prosthetics, there's no, you know, crazy bullshit. It's her just acting scary. It's incredible. It's like Jack Nicholson. It's Toni Collette in Midsommar, you know. That goes without saying. Nadia did not go check this out. I told her about it though afterwards, and she was like, I'm glad I didn't see that. Weird though that after I came home she started putting duct tape on the door. I don't know what that's about. Alright, spoilers for Obsession. 3, 2, 1. There's a few scenes and moments where it's clear that actual Nikki breaks out of the trance, and it's so scary. She's so good at portraying like this pure horror, just screaming, but immediately goes back into it. And then there's a scene that was so tense where it's like he's trying to sneak out of bed, and she's so scary, and he's just like ill-equipped to deal with this, you know, clearly, but also is taking advantage of this situation. That becomes especially clear when Nikki's sleeping, and then she starts sleeping. It sounds like she's sleep talking, and she says, just kill me. Just kill me. And she keeps saying that. And his reaction, this is the really fucked up part. His reaction is it really so bad being with me? How monstrous, you know, and terrible. And it makes, you know, his fate only so much more I want to say acceptable, but just like understandable. Like this sense of she owes me this, or I deserve this to have her like me like this, and to some level okay with her not being herself. I like how funny the movie is. Like so much of like the main concept of it, like he literally just goes to the store and buys this thing, and it's so stupid and simple. The movie doesn't shy away from that or try to like pretend it's this deeper thing. It's just like, no, he just bought this thing. It's the plot device. And I love when he goes back there to try to get more, and the guy at the register is like fucking with him, and he has the blood all over him, and it's just like accepted that the guy at this mystic shop is just like, yeah, this is what happens. Like, I don't know. He calls the helpline on the box, and the guy's like, he sounds stoned. He's just like, I don't know, like yeah, you can't really cancel a wish unless you die. You know, like if he dies, then the wish ends. So you're starting to think, okay, either he's going to end up killing her or he's going to have to die at some point. Because we know what he's doing to her is so monstrously wrong, and letting it continue is wrong. But also, like, is he willing to sacrifice himself to save her? The other girl who works at the music shop that he's at is attracted to him, but he isn't into her. And then she is like trying to warn him about like the relationship. Nikki gets jealous, ends up smashing her with like a brick in the car. Classic horror movie stuff, but it's so well done, and you really feel the complexity of like the situation, because I think in a worse movie, the guy is immediately way worse because what he's doing is wrong, but it's also complicated because he doesn't really know exactly like what happened and what he did, but he knows that she's not in a good mental state, but he is kind of using that to his advantage. He's okay with it. Like ultimately he's fine with this as long as she's acting normal. Like, just be normal, be a good girlfriend, and then I'll just try to forget that I basically possessed you with an evil demon. If there was one moment that kind of like took me out early on in the film where I was like, this is a step a little too far, is that after the first night when they're together, explains later that, oh, I was just on drugs. You know? After that, and he wakes up, she makes him breakfast, and I was so like, doesn't really get addressed later, but I was really confused and like, what? This is a step too far, where and correct me if I'm wrong, but she somehow found the corpse of his dead cat and laid it out on display in the kitchen. She recreated the dead, like, I was confused because there were flies running around it. Like, I legit am confused about that moment, so please help me. Like, did she go dig it up out of the dumpster? Either way, it was like crazy beyond the character would be like, this is so fucked up and beyond anything I would have expected, but he goes along with it or just like pretends like that didn't happen, and it's so bizarre. Of course, there's the scene later on where she feeds him his cat. I was the only person in my theater laughing at this part where he's like practicing what to tell her when he goes home, because he's just terrified every time he comes home of like, what is she going to be like, how is she going to behave, because she's all over the place, she's unpredictable. That's what's so scary about it, is just the unpredictability, where it's like she'll be extremely sweet and nice and then do something insane. He's rehearsing what he's going to tell her. It's like, we don't eat cat meat, that's not okay to do. Like, just so seriously. But man, I think my favorite scene in the movie, in the scene where the whole audience was just like, there were people in my audience being like, no, he wakes up in the middle of the night and she's standing in the shadows just staring at him. And why the scene works so well. So many other horror movies would have done it with big loud music over the top, the way like this, it was just subtle, and the way she moves, it's always like subtle weird ways, as if they're kind of reversing the film or whatever, but it works so well. Andy Richter is in this. He plays their boss. He had like a couple scenes, but it was funny seeing him in this. But everything feels real and grounded. You're wondering, like, how is he coping with this? What is he planning on doing? And anyways, he goes back to the house. Nikki has a gun now, and she's like threatening to shoot herself if he doesn't say, I love you. And he gets the gun from her, but he's trying to he needs someone. Okay, so people who maybe are complaining about the movie and about this part of the movie are like, why didn't he just go to another person? Because he takes one of the sticks. He has like two more of those, the magic sticks. He takes one to his friend, just doesn't really buy his shit, and so he snaps and says, I wish for $1 billion, and then like money comes raining down through the ceiling. But then they go back to the apartment where Nikki is, and you think, well, they should have just gone to anyone else. But he's thinking like, I'm going to ask Nikki to do it, to make the wish that he never wished this. Just find anyone else and just be like, okay, I'll give you $100. Please do exactly as I say. Snap this and say this. That you could find somebody on the street to do that. But anyways, he brings it back, and Nikki has the gun, and then he's like, okay, whatever. I'm done trying. I'm just gonna, shoot myself. And he can't do that. And he takes some pills right when he's about to throw it up, because he's like, no, I can't do that. So he's about to puke it out. Then you hear snap. She made a wish. Nikki must have made a wish. He gets this big smile on his face, and he goes out there and they kiss. And it's like, she clearly wished, the possessed Nikki clearly wished that he would be in love with her as well. So, but then he dies because he took the pills. Finally, Nikki is free from the curse, and I think it's really important that the movie lingers and stays with her after that in her realization. It's so sad, the most horrifying situation of not having control of herself, her body, and now it's like she has all this murder. She's probably going to go to jail. Yeah, but holding on her perspective at the end, I think was like, just a wise decision from the filmmaker's part. Yeah, I don't know, guys. This is not having a good time in the best way possible. I'd give this probably like an 8 out of 10 as of right now. Yeah, I think the hype is real. You should go check it. If you love horror movies, go watch this. Anyways, we've been talking about Paul Thomas Anderson movies on Nebula. If you want to go check that out, and here's a message from our past self. Speaking of movies,
last night was a movie, man.
You know what? Let's talk about TV for once.
Last night was a limited series, man.
Captain Midnight, one of our favorite creators, has a new exclusive series on Nebula called Showrunners. Do you like The Twilight Zone?
I love The Twilight Zone.
The first episode of Showrunners is all about Rod Serling, creator of The Twilight Zone, one of the most interesting people ever. He fought in World War II, changed TV, died tragically young. It offers some great insight into TV of the 50s and 60s, and I can't wait to see what other showrunners he covers in the future.
Yeah, did you know that our channel is also on Nebula?
No, this is news to me, actually.
We've been producing a miniseries covering Paul Thomas Anderson's movies only on Nebula. I'd only ever seen one battle after another, so it's been really interesting starting from the beginning. Next up, I'm watching Inherent Vice.
Do you have a favorite so far?
Can't tell you until the series is done.
Okay, alright. Nebula is the largest creator-owned streaming platform in the world. It's where all your favorite creators like Legal Eagle, Hello Future Meme, Man Carrying Thing...
He's carrying what?
Create exciting new content. If you sign up using our link at go.nebula.tv/womancarryingman or use the link below, you can get Nebula for 50% off, which is $30 a year or $250 a month. You can also get a monthly plan for $6 or a lifetime plan for $300, which usually costs $500. And for those of you that want to share everything Nebula has to offer with your family and friends, Nebula is now offering monthly, annual, and lifetime gift cards. Use the link gift.nebula.tv/womancarryingman to give a month of Nebula to a friend for just $6 or a year for $30. You can also give lifetime memberships that cost $500 unless you use our link, in which case a lifetime membership costs $300.
Thanks for watching, and thanks as always for supporting the channel.
Bye everyone.
Do you still think I'm pretty?
I'm not gonna get into that right now.
There may or may not be a coordinated hate campaign against this movie, and they're accusing this director of being a massive fraud. It's come to my attention that there is a widespread conspiracy theory online, especially on Twitter, the place where logic and IQ goes to die, that Kane Parsons, the director of the Backrooms, is not actually the director or the writer of the Backrooms, and that he had someone ghost write and ghost direct the film for him so that the film could be good, and that Kane Parsons actually just sucks and has needed some extra help from a senior person. That's what people are saying. That's how hard people are, maybe, in my opinion, coping at the fact that a young guy from YouTube was able to come over and take over the goddamn industry and is about to make $100 million in an opening weekend or week or how much it is, break records for A24, and show the big industry heads how it's done. This movie's been getting a lot of hate online. Again, Twitter is not a real place. I urge you guys to get off Twitter and live life. When you meet people, real people, you're going to realize that what's on Twitter is not how reality actually is. But regardless, people...
Why is he saying Twitter? It's X.
People hate this movie. I've seen some stuff saying, oh, this movie's a boring, dull, pretentious piece of shit, but literally just a dude walking around. That's it. That's it, right?
No, it's more
no
than
depth
that,
beyond
for
that.
sure.
I would say that a lot of these people who make that criticism don't understand the film, but you see, when you make that, when you say that, you sound pretentious, right? And I don't like saying, oh, you didn't understand, because I don't actually think The Backrooms is that hard to understand. I don't think this is one of the hardest movies ever to explain. No. Some people don't get it. I got it completely. And I think a lot of people do. I don't think it's a matter of, oh, I didn't understand. I just think maybe it's not the kind of film, a horror film, that people were expecting, with jump scares and plots and villains that are a bit more conceivable and less cosmic horror-esque. But then I see people saying, no, this is just shit. It's just absolute dog shit. But in the same breath, though, these people will see the success of this film, the box office success, the critical consensus. All the critics are lauding this film, saying it's really, really good. Audience reception on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'd be like, most people like this. Don't let Twitter get it twisted. And then these people will look at that and say, this is good for the industry, it's very promising, I'm happy for Kane, but we all know he didn't direct this movie. What? So, the movie was crap. So, what? So, what? He didn't direct this movie. What?
It was cut.
So, the movie was crap. Really bad. But at the same time, it's so advanced that Kane is too young to have directed this film, right? Is that what we're saying? You fucking idiots?
Okay.
That's what we're getting at here. This movie is shit, or it's okay, it's decent, but overhyped. But Kane, there's no way Kane directed this. This is a bit too good for someone like him, so he probably had there was a senior industry-connected dude. Someone we know from Hollywood who was probably helping it. A big name.
Yeah.
Make it make sense. These guys cannot handle, and I don't know if it's an old head issue. You know how in sports you'll have people who are old heads, fans of the older generations, you know, and will argue for that being a better version of the sport in the current generation. Then you'll have newbie fans, you know. There's a debate here. This is similar, but it's way more stupid. People are manufacturing a conspiracy, I don't know, with no evidence, that Kane Parsons literally had to have someone hold his hand and tell him what to do. A dude who made an entire series on YouTube with Blender, of all things, with Blender, and it's some of the best horror content you'll see on YouTube. That dude managed to do that shit at 19. Or even less, actually, he was younger. I think he's not even 20 years old now, right? And we're saying he can't do this. There's an actor, Mark Duplass, who, if you don't know, he played the serial killer in Creep. Very good actor. He's in this. And he said, I don't know what the hell these people are saying. They're acting as if they were on set. I was on set. I was acting. He was in complete control. Kane was in complete control. Mark Duplass, who, if you don't know, he played the serial killer in Creep. Very good actor. He's in this. And he said, I don't know what the hell these people are saying. They're acting as if they were on set. I was on set. I was acting. He was in complete control. Kane was in complete control of the project. You can also tell in Kane's interviews, the way he's describing the film, writing it, the conceptualization, the construction of the actual... He was there the whole time. He knew what he was doing. You can tell by how well-spoken he is and how dialed in he is into this film. Yeah, he was directing it. He was writing it. Now, listen, this is still a team effort, right? He wasn't alone. There's a lot of people giving their own input. There's a lot of people who add to the creativity of the film in general, right? The producers, all that stuff. There might be people who gave him some notes in the script, right? There might be people who gave him some advice in the directing, right? Because he's still a first-time director. But to say someone ghost wrote and ghost directed the whole thing for him and he didn't direct it, that's a completely different argument, my friends. And I will say the movie isn't perfect. Like, you can tell it's a first-time director trying to juggle two different kinds of films at times. A found footage cosmic horror versus a more standard A24 film with thematic stuff, like personal themes. You can tell it's a director who's a little bit struggling with that. Even though I like the film, it still has its flaws. So it's not like it's a perfect film that it's unexplainable that a 19-year-old could make a film that's so perfect. That's not the case. That's not what's happening here. And again, are we to doubt this guy's directing ability? People have always said, look at what he was able to do on YouTube with the Backrooms series. Look how many views that shit got, right? For a reason. Because some of those, you'll see it on Twitter, people reposting some of those videos, it's some of the best horror you'll see on YouTube. It's genuinely frightening, and he did it with Blender. And people in the comments are saying, imagine if you give this guy a whole budget, a Hollywood budget, what's he able to do? And then we have the answer to that, and now people can't accept it. And I have to ask myself, who are these people who can't accept it? Is there like a coordinated attempt to bring this guy down? Because I'm seeing all these negative reviews, and some of them are just talking shite out of their ass. Nonsensical. Now, granted, it's Twitter. Rage bait is the thing you do on Twitter for views. That's why I'm saying Twitter needs to be nuked from oblivion. And then I ask myself, why wasn't Obsession's director Curry Barker getting the same kind of flack? I mean, he's still a young guy. I know he's older than Kane. He's 26, but still, he's a young guy, former YouTuber, right? Is it because he had an award-winning short film, and that was a proof of concept for him, and I guess it's more acceptable to the industry that someone like him could do something? I don't know. Is it because Obsession is a bit more simple in its premise, and these people can handle it, so they're okay with the idea of a first-time director maybe creating a film like that? I don't know. I don't know. Why is Obsession easier to swallow than Backrooms? Is it because of the concept? Is it because you genuinely think Backrooms is that good? Or you think it's bad, but also at the same time, there's no way a guy like this could have done it? And I don't even know. If you look at the interviews of Kane, he's a very smart guy. So what's the issue? Is it because he's still a YouTuber? Kane still is a YouTuber. He says, I'm not going to go away from YouTube. He's still making videos. So is it because of that? Is it because some of these people saying this, bringing up this conspiracy, are industry shills who don't like the idea of a fucking YouTuber having a first-time directorial debut that's exploding in the box office right after another indie film just did, and is completely making all the mega corporate slop look like garbage? Mandalorian and Grogu? Oh, man. One of the biggest brands ever, Star Wars, Disney, is being made to look pathetic.
You serious? That's that Jay Jameson meme from Spider-Man 2.
Not like Mandalorian and Grogu is not making money. It is, but like compared to what it should be making versus what these movies should be making, it's an embarrassment. It's a disgrace. That's what this man was able to do. And I think that's causing a big insecurity in some of these fucking industry shills. I'm gonna sound very ageist when I say this, and I don't think this is necessarily an age thing. I think a lot of these accounts are probably run by young idiots too. But there's an old head problem. These old heads who can't imagine a younger guy doing this. You dusty old men and women. Again, I'm not saying you're necessarily old people. I'm just saying I know people in my audience are also like 50s, 40s, 60s, all this stuff. I'm not saying this is an age issue, but let's talk about mindset. You dusty old men and women, crusty old little bitches who can't handle this. The fact that a young guy, a former YouTuber, was able to come in and take over the fucking industry. You dusty old. Is that a slur? That might be slur, actually. Shit, I shouldn't have said that. I'll get demonetized. Anyways, Micro, we need to edit that out. Why can't you guys be humble or accept the fact that a young guy's doing good? It's not like... I'm not trying to say that the Backrooms is the best horror movie of all time and is better than the ones you loved in the past. No. Why can't you accept the fact that the best stories that are made today, that's not only just secluded for the most popular directors? Why can't you guys accept the fact that people, including, and by the way, a lot of the big proportion of the audiences watching this were under 35 years old, apparently, statistically. Why can't you guys accept the fact?
I'm still under 35 for right now until August.
That there are people, younger and even older, who want new ideas, new concepts. Obsession isn't necessarily a new idea, but it's an interesting concept. Backrooms is a new concept. Why can't you accept that they want new concepts? That's the Backrooms is built. The whole premise of it is its concept. Why can't you accept that? And
y'all need to do better. Mind your own business. That's from Joey Swoll.
The fact that a YouTuber was able to do it well. What's the problem here? Is it because you have some kind of insecurity? Oh, these younger, there's no way a younger person could do this. Is it because you look down on the younger generations? Listen, I think a lot of the younger kids these days are fucking idiots. I know, I see them all the time. They run down my street making noises with their cars and their hybrid bicycle, motorcycle things, whatever. I don't like them any more than you do. But to say a 19-year-old can't do this, you are gatekeeping at a level that's just disgraceful. He just came in and knocked it out of the park. He made your corporate mega slop, all these corporate producers look like a joke. And that's the other thing. The era of mega slop, I think, is about to come to an end if more movies like this keep getting successful. You know the Backrooms is going to have sequels. You know Curry Barker is going to start making more movies. More YouTubers are going to come onto the scene. My day will come. I promise you. You know that more fresh ideas are going to come. Get fucking used to it, y'all. You old head fucks. I hate the idea now. Look.
It's like Dave Chappelle. I'm just unwinding. I'm just getting started, bitches.
In my life recently, I've figured out that a lot of these old heads and all the people I thought might have more wisdom than me because they're more experienced or they just know more, all this stuff, these people, some of them, they've been exposed to me in my personal life and what I'm seeing online. They are so utterly... Listen, I'm trying to always be respectful of your elders, okay? But it's fine to acknowledge when some of them are either so tunnel visioned or so in keeping with the past that they don't know how to move forward. They just can't accept anything beyond their old ways. And then there's a contingent of fans who are not necessarily older, but they live in the past or like the idea of keeping things the same as they are. They don't want change or revolution. They just want everything to be as traditional as it always was and be like, no. The industry's the industry and it's going to be run by the people in it. These outsiders, no, we can't have them. You're gatekeepers. You're gatekeeping dumb fucks. Every single one of you. How dare you? How dare you? You know that what Kane has just done and what Curry have just done is inspire a whole generation of creators outside of the industry to come and invade it and take it over. And do it in such a fashion that the corporate mega slop producers and all these idiots at Disney and all these people who can't write for shit They will not have any room for error anymore. Because guess what? There is a new dog in the yard now. There are new dogs in the yard. The yard's about to be changed. Y'all were in a yard, and now we're throwing you into a fucking pool.
I just changed the dog.
And there's so many other fish there. There's so many other fish there. And then you have someone like Kane who's a fucking piranha! That metaphor became ridiculous. But you know what I'm saying. I'm done with the old head ideology. I'm done with these idiots bringing up this conspiracy. Now, of course, this video could age like milk if it is somehow exposed that this dude had someone ghost directing or ghost writing. That will never come to light, though. That's never going to happen. That's not true. He did this. Hollywood shills can't handle it. And that's just that. I am laughing. I'm not fuming. I'm actually laughing. I love this. When I saw this, I'm like, oh my god, this is what I've been waiting for. I've been knowing this all along, bruh. All these old crusty heads, all these people in charge of these corporations who do stuff the old way, all they see is green and money. Now reality's hitting them. And don't get me wrong, Hollywood loves what Kane's doing because he's making them money, right? But these industry shills can't handle it. Fuck them all.
Thought it was hilarious.
I was going to make another Backrooms theory video, but I decided to do this instead because I was hearing this. I'm like, this can't be allowed to fester. I will be making more Backrooms videos, and he has inspired me to start making my first short film. And I might make a whole video about that and my process for that. But yeah, thank you, Kane. Thank you, Curry Barker. Fuck you, Hollywood. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on a mission to take over Hollywood. But the army must keep growing. If you want to suggest video topics to me, or talk about your favorite movies or favorite film theories in a community with like-minded individuals, join the Zafy Discord now. Link is in the description and the comment section as well. Join us. This movement is just beginning. We're taking over Hollywood, one coke line at a time.
Let's check out the other one, I guess.
I watched Curry Barker's Obsession again, and I noticed some very strange details. The most terrifying part of this movie is not Freaky Nikki. It's not her weird freaking smiles that she gives, or her weird movements in the shadows, her walking backwards and all that stuff. As terrifying as that is, and as many sleepless nights as that has given me, there's a scarier facet to this movie that not a lot of people are talking about. This is a film that I have not been able to stop thinking about since it came out. Today we're going to go into the One Wish Willow, what it is, maybe some lore behind it and where it comes from that I'm going to theorize about, because let's be clear, the makers of this film don't even know where it comes from. The real Nikki versus the freaky Nikki. How this film is realistically a tragedy as much as it is a horror movie, and who the real villain of this movie is. Here we go. If you guys don't know the story because you've been living under a rock, this dude likes this pretty cool girl, friend of his, girl next door kind of vibe. Honestly, she gives very, very attractive, by the way. Very attractive. She finds fun. Basically finds this keepsake gift at a crystal shop. The One Wish Willow. He can make one wish only, snaps the willow, and the wish will come true. Turns out it does come true. Turns out this magic is very, very real. And basically he sends this girl down the spiral of pure fucking love, obsessed insanity. And it pretty much ruins his life. The One Wish Willow, it's this spell that's able to use magic to alter things in reality. Rules are, you get one wish, the same person cannot use a One Wish Willow again. You can only use one. You can nullify it, maybe by having someone else wish something, right? Like you've never made the wish, for example. Realistically, there is no end to the wish until you die. The wish is tied to reality until your death. It is very soul dependent. Now, people have theorized about what happens to Nikki when this One Wish Willow snaps. Is there an entity that possesses her? The real Nikki is in there, but what we see is not the real Nikki. So is there like a demon attached to this One Wish Willow? What's really going on here? I don't think there is a specific antagonistic force that is conjured by the One Wish Willow. I think this is magic, a spell that's neither good or evil. It just works. And that's a very terrifying aspect of this film. A lot of people will theorize, oh, there's an entity here. We can get to what the entity is, but I'm going to use that word very specifically here, okay? The One Wish Willow is neutral. The spell is neutral. It's neither good or bad. It could end up really good for you, right? There are people in this film who have used the One Wish Willow, like people at the shop that he argues with, our main character argues with, who it's worked out for them because they wished maybe for the right things. It's all dependent on your own words. It's all dependent on you. Humans are the idiots. The spell is not evil. It's all dependent on humans. It's a reality warping spell. It bends the fabric of reality to make things happen. Like, you wish for $1 billion are going to come out of thin air. You wish for this girl to love you, it's going to warp the entire persona of her to conjure up a being that loves you. As for the lore of where it comes from, right, Kerry Barker didn't really think about it much. I'm going to go out of my way to connect it to another film because I'm just a cokehead schizo moron. The One Wish Willow reminds me of another type of magic. In Weapons, this old hag basically takes people's hair or some kind of thing that's tied to them, some object, wraps it around a branch of this plant, snaps it, and takes control of them, turning them into weapons effectively. This weird plant-like tree. The director of this had someone design it based off of different types of plants and trees to create a composite figure. So it's not a willow tree, but it is a tree of sorts, and the snapping of the tree just reminds me a lot of the snapping in Obsession. Magic featured in Weapons is dark magic and witchcraft. At its core, magic revolves around sympathetic magic, where the antagonist, Gladys, uses personal items and hair as tag locks to control her victims and strip them of free will, and then she's able to feed from their life force as a result. So I had a theory. After the events of Weapons, maybe somebody found the remnants of the spell and what happened to Gladys, found that little plant, and basically used the same kind of magic, but created a different spell. Instead of purely using sympathetic magic, they conjured a spell that, okay, instead of controlling people, we want to take control of events in the world. We want to take control of reality itself. Instead of finding this composite plant, we're going to go large scale with it. We're going to find a tree, a willow tree, and do the same thing, but instead of having tag locks that are personal to people, because that's just a way of controlling people, we're going to retro-frame the specifics of the spell to create the blueprint of another spell, mass produce that for mass consumption so we can profit off it, but also maybe the people in charge of this One Wish Willow are gaining life force as a result of all these spells being conjured by all those people wishing. It's a very interesting thing, right? The people bear calls. Maybe this is part of a company, of a group of people founded off of the idea of, oh, there is witchcraft. There are people that are taking people's hair and snapping branches to take control of people. Let's take this idea, retro-frame it for broader use, and make it available for public consumption so people can do our job for us and just help us. You know, make us immortal, all this type of stuff. Give us ultimate power. Could be just interesting. Cool little idea. The story of Obsession is just one part of that world. You know what I'm saying? Now, what happens to Nikki? What really is going on with Nikki? Let's take a look at what Bear wished for specifically. I wish she loved me more than anyone in the whole world. Now, if you were to wish this, is it realistic that Nikki would be the way she is after? In this movie, she becomes obsessed and crazy and will go as far as to kill for him, right? Does this wish realistically end in somebody becoming so obsessed that they're like that? I had to think to myself, would a girl become that crazy if that was the specific wording used? I love you. I wish she loved me more than anyone in the world. I feel like there are ways that you can navigate around that and say, oh, well, that could result in a girl maybe not being crazy, but just really loving you. But the specifics of the wording, I wish she loved me more than anyone in the world. And that includes herself. Not only am I going to love this guy who I would never love like that, right? And we can talk about, there are theories that Nikki secretly did have feelings for him and was kind of disappointed when she asked him, do you like me? And he said no. But there's a world of difference between her having maybe slight feelings and liking the idea of him liking her versus being in love with him, right? So I want her to love me more than anyone in the world, including herself. So not only is she putting him above every other person in her mind, but she's putting him on a pedestal above herself. So her entire being is kind of focused on him. I can't even look at the screen, man. What the fuck? This creates a husk of Nikki. Nikki's in the shadows a lot in this film, and I think that's like purposeful, because it's like the film is trying to tell you she's a shadow of herself. Like, it's the uncanny valley too, right? You don't actually know what her intentions are because she's in the dark. Her face is kind of covered in shadow, and then when she's in the dark, she's like, it looks like she's a silhouette of the Nikki that he loved, or thought he loved anyways. So it created something that he didn't expect. Here's the scariest part. When he's not there, she's not there. It's like the wish has turned her body into something that's made solely for him, right? For example, when he leaves the house to go to work, she stays there smiling until she freaking is in this position, throwing up, pooping, shitting herself.
Almost.
And it's kind of inferred that the real Nikki tried to get out a couple times during this, off screen, and the wish Nikki suppressed it. Like, she's not going to do anything until this guy comes. She serves him only, because she can't even serve herself. The specifics of the wish stopped her from serving herself. Nothing else has her attention. If you look at the scene when they're watching a movie, it's a short little scene. She just will look at him. Then he'll point her chin back, and then she'll look at him, right? It's like nothing else. It's like tunnel vision on him. Nothing else matters. But the worst thing is, there's a jump scare sex
Just focused. Tunnel line vision focused.
scene. Yeah, a sex scene's used as a jump scare, where he's banging her, but he's not looking her in the eyes, right? And she's just looking up. She's moaning, right? She's making all the right sounds for him, but because he's not looking at her, she's just like this, looking dead while getting banged, right? And part of that is the real Nikki is traumatized as a result of this, but also Wish Nikki has no reason to smile or look passionate because he's not looking at her. Again, her physical being is a reaction to him. She only exists for him. So when he's not looking her in the eye, she's like this. And if he was to look her, she'd be like, right? It's like a game, right? So the actress actually gave this idea to the director, saying, it's like a game. You're in a video game, and the pixels of a tree. You're in a video game, and the pixels of a tree. You're in a video game will just not be that anymore. They'll kind of disappear, and then you'll focus on something else, right? It's like a fucking video game. She is made for him. When he's not in frame, she's not in frame. She only exists for him. She's literally a husk of flesh. The wish created a husk of flesh. It's literally terrifying. It's not the real Nikki. The wish has taken this girl, warped her to the point where she's become an entirely different person. The real Nikki wouldn't do half the shit this girl does. So the wish has to basically create a new person to give him his wish. It's a version of Nikki that is horrendous, but it's not her. It's something else entirely. That's the entity. It's not a demon. It's the wish trying to conjure up a new being for him, because that's the only way this can go down, right? Logically, the real Nikki would never fall for him, so we're gonna make her fall for him, but as a result, we're bending and warping the reality of this person to do so, and to the point where she's a different person entirely. Now, what's happening with the real Nikki? Every time there's this jump scare where the Nikki will go like this and go berserk, that's the real Nikki trying to come through. There are several times where the real Nikki's trying to speak to Bear directly. One where she's asleep and she's saying, "Kill me, Bear. Kill me, please," before she wakes up. The other is when she's like giving him messages. And if you really watch the movie, it's a very layered film. When you watch the movie, there are clues that she's trying to speak to Bear. Then when she tries to self-harm, that's her trying to off herself to get out of the situation. And then we have that disgusting poem, Hansel and Gretel poem. This is also the real Nikki kind of shining through subconsciously. The real Nikki, even though there are theories that she, maybe likes him and has feelings for him, she still has always seen Bear as a brother. That's the relation. They have a sibling relationship, not a romantic one. So by having a poem about incest between Hansel and Gretel, right? That poem she says in the middle of the party, that's the real Nikki kind of subconsciously blending in with the wish Nikki to make this poem about brother and sister, because fundamentally deep down these two people are not compatible. They shouldn't be together because it's a sibling relationship above all else, despite him liking her. It's fucking scary stuff, man. Now, where is Nikki? That's the question, isn't it? Where is Nikki when the wish Nikki is there? Because the real Nikki is able to bounce back in, but where is she when she's not? I kind of liken it to the sunken place in Get Out, where your body is being controlled by someone else and the soul of you is being like suppressed and literally pushed down this gaping hole. And there's a scene where he's in the car asking about the wish and what happened to Nikki, and then the person on the other end is like, "Would you like to hear her?" Would you like to speak to her? And then he puts the real Nikki on the phone, and she's screaming in pain, just like she's burning in hell. I think that this is like the purgatory that she's sent to, where she's falling endlessly, but there's also something else happening where she's feeling immense pain. And because she's a fighter, because Nikki can fight back, she is able to climb back from the void and get in, but then she's suppressed and pushed back down by the Wish Nikki. It's freaking terrifying. But then there's the other thing. You know, there's a reason why she was called Freaky Nikki back in the day. There's been references in the film to it. Oh, she was bullied and called that, and she hates that name. When Bear calls her, hey, see you later, Freaky Nikki, and she's like, ew, don't call me that. It clearly struck a chord. She doesn't like that. Why? I have a theory about this. I think that maybe she did have strange behavior back in the day that she was bullied for. It's revealed that she was hooking up with Ian on and off in this film throughout the course of years, and Ian, apparently, according to the director, cut things off with her. Maybe Ian left her for reasons that maybe she was a bit clingy, a bit weird. Maybe she did have strange behavior back in the day that she was bullied for. It's revealed that she was hooking up with Ian on and off in this film throughout the course of years, and Ian, apparently, according to the director, cut things off with her. Maybe Ian left her for reasons that maybe she was a bit clingy, a bit weird. Maybe there are impulses that she has as a character. And I'm not saying she's crazy, but everyone has their baggage. Everyone's capable of doing weird stuff. I think this Nikki actually maybe had some freakiness to her in the past, has the potential to be a bit crazy, and basically what the One Wish Willow did was taking all of her dark impulses and maximizing them so that she could be with this dude. Therefore, not only creating a new person with the impulses of the original person, but now you've kind of made a more violent, psychotic entity as a result. It's no one. I feel like no one has really brought this up. Like, why was she actually called Freaky Nikki? Maybe there is a bit of freakiness to her. I'm not saying she's a crazy like this entity is, but maybe the Wish just took all the aspects that made the real Nikki,
break it and
then warped them and bent them towards creating someone that this person wouldn't be, and we have this Freaky Nikki as a result. Now, who's the real villain of the story? Most people are saying, as a result, it's Bear, because well, he's the one victimizing Nikki here. He's not the real victim, she is, and he wished for this. Now, granted, he didn't know the wish would work, and it took him a bit of time to understand what was actually happening. And when he did understand it, when she even begged him, kill me, he let his ego get in the way, and he responded into such a weird way, like, oh, what's wrong with being with me? He clearly is a very selfish person. Now, he's not a villain in the traditional sense, because he's not outwardly doing evil acts. He's not planning to do evil acts. He's just a lonely fucking dude who wants to get with a girl, and he's too selfish to let her go, and then by the time he actually tries to solve everything and stop it, it's too late. And even then he kind of chickens out at the last moment. So he's a very well written non-traditional villain. People have called him this incel misogynist who just hates Nikki and all that. I wouldn't go that far. He's clearly someone who's very lonely. His grandmother has died. His cat has died. That's two things that have been established in the beginning of the film. He's very vulnerable. So Nikki, this cool, hot girl who's kind of there for him and is a good friend to him, of course he's going to put her on a pedestal and idolize her, even though there's another girl who literally likes him, and Sarah. And what happens. So, in a way, he kind of is the main villain in the non-traditional sense. And that's what I like about this film. Nothing is like black and white, even Nikki, it's revealed that real Nikki is more complicated and flawed than his idolization of her would grant. Like, he sees her giving money to homeless people, and he sees the way she is, and he puts her on a pedestal in his mind, but then it's revealed, oh, she's been hooking up with Ian, and Ian has been lying to you, and Nikki's been lying to you, and, there's this weird stuff, right? There are things that come out about Nikki that even he doesn't know of. So I love how every single character in this is a lot more complex. And this friend group is actually kind of fucked up. They keep so many things from each other. I wanted to make another video about this because I can't stop thinking about the film. I think the marketing for this film was goated. There's a whole billboard that keeps changing every day. If you know about that, you can text the number of Nikki and get fucking blasted messages from her. You can call the number on the One Wish Willow as well. Like, you can do. There's so many interesting. I haven't seen a campaign for a film like this in a while, and it's so cool that it was an indie horror film made by a YouTuber. I love it. I love this movie. It's also made me kind of depressed thinking about like the tragedy of it all, because I felt scared, but now I just feel scared and sad. Because do you not understand what's happened to Nikki at the end of this? Not only was she kind of R-worded in the soul and the body, literally throughout the course of this film, but by the time she actually wakes up from the spell, because Bear's died, she's now kind of responsible for a triple homicide. You could argue Bear took the drugs and cops can see that, but she's just killed two people. And there's no way you can prove that to the cops. Oh, it was magic. Like, it's very hard to do that. Like, the burden of proof is all against her. Her life is over. Her future's done. And not only that, the trauma and depression she's gonna feel, she's gonna want to off herself. Like, it's such a sad film. It's just as much of a tragedy as it is a horror film, in my opinion. Those are my thoughts on that, guys. I love this fucking movie. I had to make another video on it. Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on a mission.
He's gonna see it again and then make another video. How much you wanna bet? Let's check it out. Well, is Zafty. Let's check it out here. I shit myself. Let's watch the other one, I guess.
What the heck did I just witness? I watched the Backrooms last night, and not only was this a different take on the existing lore that I'm aware of, it had a freaking insane ending that the final shot leaves a lot of implications about what this thing is. When you actually look into what this entity that is the Backrooms truly is, this dimension, things get a little bit creepy, man. And there's some details that I noticed in the film that lead me to believe that there is more here than just what the characters in this conclude the Backrooms is. And I think a whole franchise is going to be made off this. This film has been getting a lot of hate on Twitter, of course, because Twitter is a place where people just love to hate and rage bait and be fucking miserable bots. A lot of people are saying this is boring, dull, pretentious, not as deep as it wants you to believe. It's terrible. People are comparing it to the Obsession movie that came out, because these are two horror movies that came out back to back and are both made by former YouTubers. It's just getting a lot of shit online. We need an objective take from someone like me. Cokehead with a mask on. Is it good? Is the Backrooms good, Zaffy? Yes. It's good. I would even go as far to say it's very good. Would I say it's great, amazing, out of bounds of what I expected it to be? No, probably not. But I do think it's a good, competently made film. I do have problems with it, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to get to that, but I think it's a solid film, and I think this is a solid debut. It's got great atmosphere, great music. I love the score in this too. Great set design. The set design is everything. Right? It's not just CGI that they have. I'm sure they use Blender and stuff in moments, but there's huge set design. I think they built a lot of these sets. They have really good performances by two actors that you know are veterans of the game. You know these people are going to perform. So we're going to do the pros, the cons. We're going to talk spoilers, and then we're going to do theories about some of the shit that goes down in this, all right? Because it gets crazy. The third act of this, I didn't even know what I was watching at one point. Pros. People who are saying this is slow and boring and dull, I don't know what the hell movie you were watching. I was in a theater with it's mostly filled to the brim with teenagers, okay? And they were like reacting and freaking out to
Same
this
for
film.
me.
They weren't just bored and dull. A lot of people were saying, oh, there was no reaction from the audience. That's not true at all in my experience. I thought my audience was actually going to be really annoying, but they weren't. They were actually locked in. This has some really intense
Same for
sequences
me.
that got people. I think it's surprisingly well paced. Yes, it does. For our main characters to get into the crux of the story, it does take a while to get going, but there's a lot of character development that's happening there. The opening scene locks you straight in. The opening scene, I don't want to spoil it. I have to get to the spoiler talk section, but the opening scene basically sets the tone for the rest of the film. And it is suspenseful, it is creepy, and it's awesome. And then you get to... I do think that there is a argument to be made that this movie is caught between two styles of film, and because of that, the two don't mesh well together, and it should have only chosen one style. I think there's an argument to be made for that, but I think in terms of Kane Pearson's trying to balance two types of movies here, found footage and just like a conventional horror, I think he does really well. I think our characters, for the most part, are there's a lot of depth to them. Some of it is not so subtle, the things that they're going to. Some of the dialogue and the writing is a bit ham-fisted at points, but I think for the most part, they serve their purpose. People are saying this is just a dude walking around the backrooms. Yeah, those sequences of this dude walking around, of these people walking around, are really fucking intense. People are just... I think some of the people who are saying it's just a dude walking around, you're TikTok brain, bruh. You're TikTok brained. The found footage sequences, there's two. One in the opening, there's a second one with our, one of our lead characters, where he takes a few of his staff to go down there to see what's up with this fucking new dimension that they found in this store. It's one of the most intense sequences of the year. A lot of people were freaking out. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a scene that people are going to hint at, one with a bunch of clothing in corners, hounded up in like a den, and then one with a Christmas tree. It's really creepy. It's really creepy. This movie wasn't like scary to me the way the Obsession was, because the archetype in Obsession just like gives me nightmares. It does. I'm very interested in the Backrooms as a concept, so I'm too interested by it to be scared of it. But these scenes, genuinely, I was like, oh hell no. But every time the camera would turn here, because it's found footage, they turn it here, then they turn back, they turn here. I'm like, bro, fuck off. I know something's about to pop up, and you know what? There's not a lot of jump scares. That moment that you're waiting for, they stretch it out as long as they can. They don't actually give you the jump scare, and I love that. I love that this movie did that. I would, if you're in a packed audience, this could make or break the experience for you, because some audiences are just stupid these days. All these kids, degenerates running around. My audience surprisingly was chill. But they were chill in a way that they were reactive. It was an experience watching this shit together, you know what I'm saying? I think the first half of this movie is brilliant. I really enjoyed the first half. The first half is when most of the found footage stuff is going down, and that's the strength of this movie. You can tell Kane Pearson's is like very familiar and comfortable with found footage. And that's where the majority of the scary stuff and suspenseful stuff goes down. There's a lot of intense sequences in the Backrooms themselves. And I will say the final 5 minutes of this movie, chef's kiss, with the implications, especially in the final shots of the film, of what this thing, this dimensional entity that is the Backrooms is actually doing. Cons. I do feel like this guy, I forget, I can never pronounce this actor's name, but he's a great actor. The characterization of him is a bit problematic in this film for me, because it's clear that this dude's going through some shit. He's going through a divorce. He's going through family issues. He's clearly unstable a little bit. You can tell there's hints of him having anger issues. But there's a point where his character takes a turn, and we actually focus in on her. And it's not a problem because she's a fine character, but when we do get back to him, there's something that happens with his character, and it's towards the latter half, that's kind of out of left field. And it feels so out of left field that it feels ridiculous. It's almost like tonally the movie's kind of changed. It kind of grinds the overall momentum and tone of the film to a halt, and you're like, what the hell is it? What am I watching? Like, this is just too crazy, you know what I'm saying? And it goes from cosmic horror to like personal, thematic, symbolic horror a little bit. Some people might be disappointed by that because the cosmic horror for some is just more interesting than the personal thematic. I thought the way that they used metaphors, and I'm going to get to the spoiler talk here, but I thought it was smart what they did here. But I do feel like what happens with him, because we don't get enough time to develop that, it just feels out of left field and a bit ridiculous and weird and out of place a little bit, for me at least. I think this movie would have done better to just focus on one of these two rather than focus on both. And I do feel like this movie, the biggest problem with it is there's a dual thing happening here where it's trying to do two things at once, both in terms of a style of film, found footage and normal. And I think it does that better. And then it also tries to work on two different characters who have their own baggage but are kind of like mirrors to each other. I do think focusing on one would have been a little bit better for the pacing of this film structurally, but overall that's kind of my only major gripe with it. I think it's a very good horror movie and a very good debut by Kane Pearson. I think this dude has a very promising career ahead of him if this is your first fucking major feature film directorial debut. All right, spoiler talk, no more fucking around. What is this thing? What is it doing in this movie's version of the Backrooms? This movie is basically taking layers of memory of everything that was, and it's basically creating copies of it. You know when you go into the Backrooms and everything feels nostalgic? It feels that way for a reason, right? It feels like this is a place I've been here before, but I can't quite place it. It was in a dream or an old memory from another life. Is it the Mandela effect? This movie, literally, what the Backrooms is doing is replicating memories of yours, but that's just it. They describe it as, imagine describing to a person, a dog, who's never seen a dog, and then asking them to draw it. That's what the Backrooms is kind of doing. It's kind of doing that with your memories, with your subconscious as well, to the point where it distorts various things in your memories and makes them a bit creepy. It builds the memories and creatures within it, and you're also building it simultaneously. Every time you go to the Backrooms, you're giving this thing memories and subconscious thoughts and dreams to conjure up and create and literally manifest. You're literally filling the pool by getting into this. It duplicates people and things from our memory and our own subconscious too. It has doppelganger versions of us that are in this, and that's where we get to some of the more creepy elements of the film. It basically builds from us. It's using our subconscious and our memories to build what's in this, and it's doing this for multiple people. But also there's an implication that it doesn't just build while we're inside of it, because what I thought was happening is once someone enters the Backrooms just like almost like analyzes their mind and then starts building from them. But I think it also can build from you when you're not in the Backrooms, when you're close to it. For example, the gateway to the Backrooms is from in the store, right? The second level, the second floor. So whenever our main characters are near that gateway, it seems like the Backrooms is still able to siphon out memories from them and fill itself. It's almost like it's still able to draw energy from our world, which would make sense. You would ask yourself, how come these entities from this dimension don't come into our world? At least we don't see that in the movie, right? Maybe that's not the point. Maybe this thing is just trying to use us to build itself out. It's like an infinite chasm, an entity that feeds from our reality, almost like a tumor. You know, like a cancerous tumor is in you, and it's almost like trying to be an organ, but it's not supposed to be there, so it's killing you at the same time. And Jeremy Johns actually put it in a great way in his review. Tumors can sometimes, and it's disgusting to think about this, can grow hair and teeth. It's like they think they're supposed to be doing something. They're trying to replicate you, but it's not. It's like distorted, deathly version of you. That's what the Backrooms kind of is. You know, it's replicating you, and we don't know why it's doing that, but it just is, and it's creating distorted versions of you through your memory and subconscious. It's very disturbing. And then we get to the major entity that's in this. And there's not a major entity. The Backrooms itself is a major entity, but what's the thing that's hunting you and chasing you down on this? So in the original YouTube series, the creatures mainly that you see are these weird slime squiggly creatures that are created from this cosmic bacteria within the Backrooms that's growing and festering, right? This isn't that. The entity in the Backrooms is, again, these are still beings, still life beings created from your subconscious and your memories. It takes shit from your memories, people, for example, our main character, his wife, you know, and other figures that represent his subconscious parts of it, and creates still life beings from them. So this fucking hell. And I found this specific creature very goofy at first. I was like, what the hell is this? But then the way he moves and shit, like it is a bit weird. It is a bit creepy. It basically takes the scariest part of your subconscious or memory and now makes it sentient and distorted. So the captain archetype that lays within this main character. This main character really he takes pride in being the the breadwinner of the family, the leader, the captain of his own ship, and he forces that onto everyone. Like, he has a big argument with his wife, like, I'm the one making money here, you're doing nothing, sitting on your ass all day, you know, like, it's that angered, temperamental captain archetype within him that's found in identity because the Backrooms may manifested it, and it's this giant, distorted, disgusting version of him that ends up killing him. And that was one of the most what the fuck moments. I was like, what the hell is that? In the opening scene of the film, that's the entity that attacks the main async scientist. When he sees that thing walking out of the door, you see a silhouette of it, you see its head, and the head is shaped like the hat. And when I first saw it, I thought that was like some weird dinosaur-looking creature. It's this guy. We have this fucking thing, this dude who is just chilling, to be honest, and opening the light. We have his wife, who's creepy as fuck. There's one sequence where there's that Christmas tree, and she's just walking towards him. It's horrible. So basically, when when our main character enters the Backrooms, it's almost like it's running an assessment on him and building the moment he's there. So it creates something that's thematically symbolic of him and his subconscious, nostalgic for the days where he was with his wife still. It shows his actual wife. It has still life beings that represent his broken family, and his need to impose his will on others without causing them pain. FYI, when he stabs them or eats them and they don't feel anything. It's all about the character he is and has been manifested by the Backrooms and duplicated. And that leads him to have a mental break, and that causes him to snap mentally when he's captured into the Backrooms, and causes him to kidnap the main therapist and have a role play with her, and he wants to stay here. This is the world. This is where he belongs now, right? And I will be honest, this was my least favorite part of the film because we don't get enough time to develop his mental breakdown. We leave his character because him and his crew that they go missing, and then we go with the therapist, and then she finds him, and then he's mentally broken. We assume that he's been here for weeks or a month at least, so we don't get time to see his mental breakdown. So when it happens, it feels very out of left field and very almost ridiculous, some of the dialogue that's happening. The main entity is this, and some people might say that that's not scary, that's goofy as fuck, but when you see what it represents, it is kind of creepy. It's a distorted manifestation of himself that attacks invaders. You know, it's almost like this creature saw him treating the other still lifes and eating them, and he's like, fuck it, I'm gonna do the same thing. And then ate him, kills the main dude. That scene was crazy. So again, it's the same entity we see in the opening. The opening scene was happening in tandem with Clark being in the Backrooms. It's almost like the Backrooms is creating shit while you're there, even before. Because when Clark first enters the Backrooms, we see shoes that are stuck in the ground that belong to one of his assistants who hasn't even entered the Backrooms yet. When his whole crew enters the Backrooms, the main guy sees one of his shirts that he was wearing a couple days before. So it's like the Backrooms is already creating and replicating from the memories of Clark because he's seeing these guys. He's seeing these assistants of his, right? It's already replicating everything. It's insane. So this plays copies from our memories very quickly. And it builds multiple levels off of each memory, seemingly, and to the point where it's an infinite chasm. So some could ask, okay, if these creatures in this film aren't the same as the creatures and the entities in the Backrooms, is it canon? Is it the same world? Well, yes, it still can be, because one, think about it, the Backrooms is huge. We have only seen a couple levels in this film, right? It's massive over there. Who's to say that if we go down to level 400, a bacteria virus hasn't latched itself down there, you know what I'm saying? And these creatures aren't roaming around down there. There's so much more to the Backrooms than we understand. The only thing we see of the Backrooms from this film is the perspective of the characters whose subconscious and memories are flooding the Backrooms. There's some other shit down there in the deeper levels, the higher levels, that probably gets a little bit more complicated and hard to understand. And Kane Pearson, as I said, he has a whole Bible of lore for the Backrooms, and he didn't want to give away the mystery of it in this film. So we are going to be seeing a progression of that lore through his films if we get more Backrooms films, which we probably will from the financial success of this. For the most part, this is very character-driven, thematic entities that we're dealing with. And that might be a disappointment to some people. You know, for me it was a little bit, but then at the ending scene really saved it for me, I'll be honest. There's a difference between character-driven horror that deals with their trauma, and which trauma is like a lot of horror movies are delving into trauma, and it's, you know, some people are getting tired of it, including myself. And then there's cosmic horror where they're just beings outside your comprehension, outside the human mind. This goes more into the character-driven thematic elements, but we have the ending. The ASIC scientists find the therapist. They bring her in. after she's been chased by that big giant version of Clark. Her fate is unclear because there's no way Async is going to let her live or let her out this easily unless she works for them or who knows, they might kill her, I don't know. But she has a smile at the end. She's very attractive, by the way. I'm going to say this actress is all good. Anyways, she has a smile at the end. Almost like this character longs for the days, the memories she had with her mother before her mother had mass psychosis. It's almost like the Backrooms nostalgia kind of helped her because the Backrooms built memories of her and what she has, right? So then the final shots of the film, we see all the levels of memory that the Backrooms has created as a result of her being there. And then we see her still life version, her duplicate, in a room that's a duplicate of the room she's in Async, and where she's just sitting there, and it's a duplicate version of her, and her face is all fucked up and distorted, right? And what the implication here is that this is a never-ending thing. The Backrooms has copied everything. It's still copying things while she's there. Even when you're outside of the Backrooms, it's still copying your memories. It's almost latched onto you. Then there's the implication that the Async scientist tells her, we need to figure out what's going on here because there are doors opening everywhere. And he also says, we've been researching, fuck my lens. We've been researching this thing for years and nothing is as important as this. And it's going to take a lifetime to figure out what's there because it's an infinite place. And that makes me a bit excited because we've only seen the tip of the iceberg of what the Backrooms has to offer. So I really enjoy the Backrooms. Again, there's structurally there's some problems. There's a problem with the characterization of the one character that comes out of left field, but it's a solid film. If I'm going to compare to the horror films, I do think I like Obsession more. I think Obsession was just a surprise hit, you know? The Backrooms has so much anticipation, so much expectations, but I enjoyed it, man. I liked it. I'm gonna do a spoiler live stream. By the time you're seeing this video, I'm probably going to do it later today. So yeah, and I'm going to it's a duplicate version of her, and her face is all fucked up and distorted, right? And what almost like this character longs for the days, the memories she had with her because the Backroom, we see all her still, and where she's just sitting there.
It's kind of like Bad AI. How it was 3 years ago, 3 years ago, how bad AI was making more than 5 fingers.
And it's a duplicate version of her, and more theory videos on the Backrooms. But anyways, guys, have a good one. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are on a mission.
Okay, that is it for me. Like, subscribe, and share, as Tyrone Magnus would say. Do that, and I'll see you in the next one.